Chapter 1. Introduction. This book is dedicated to humanity as a whole, for whatever little it may add in health and contentment. You have often heard me speak of an oracle or sign which comes to me. This sign I have had ever since I was a child. Socrates. The key to life. In this great universe of earth and sky, strange forces make us mortals do strange things. Humanity, doped or drugged by laws of man, wanders unsatisfied through time and space, not knowing of the deep magnetic forces, waiting entrance to the mind. O human soul, if you will pause and take the key within your reach and open up the cupboard of your mind, there, upon the shelf of common sense, you will find such great content that man and mate would never want for more. The theory presented in this book is new only in the sense that it has been revitalized of recent times. It is, in fact, as old as the world. Those who have seen the results of this theory in practice have called it miraculous. Others who have yet to see and learn and understand have called it fakery. I have taken upon myself the task of trying to give as complete and accurate a picture of a person working with this theory as my ability permits. To understand him and interpret him for you is what I am trying to do. He thinks and acts from unshakable knowledge through a source which most of us are only beginning to recognize dimly. The way in which the source works through him will have to be understood for us to accept. With my first grasp of this work, I suggested that this understanding belongs to the people. He agreed and said he had known for some time that he should try to explain his perception of human energy. This wisdom was present from his birth, but its application and growth came about through experiment and experience to the highly developed talent it is today. Endless discussions, arguments, and bewilderment went into my education. Revolutionary ideas were hard to accept at first, but repetitious proof left me no choice but to accept and believe. I found explanations for conditions that until now had no explanations. The accomplishment of restored health through the revitalization of nervous systems I have witnessed now for over a year. I remember well a conversation we had when I first tried to comprehend his ability. This is all so startling and new that I wonder whether the people are ready for you. The trend is in this direction, but do you think we have had enough preparation? Why is this new and startling? Was his reply. That is a misunderstanding. It is actually a lost art. Doesn't the Bible explain that some of the people in ancient days had the understanding and wisdom of healing through the laying on of hands? Don't you think the laying on of hands was their method of distributing human energy? My opinion is that it was the common and accepted practice of healing at that time. We have come to look upon it as miraculous only because of lost knowledge and its usage down through the centuries. Knowledge and power must have been deliberately kept from the people and retained by a few to exert control over the masses. The power that goes through me is in everyone. Only the wisdom of its application is necessary. This person is an average appearing man, pleasant, jovial, and likable. But after a little while in his presence, you are aware of a quality and a force behind him that are indefinable, a something that eludes you. He seems to treat his ability as a joke on himself. His favorite expression is, "It's crazy, isn't it?" And it does seem so. He talks like a combination mechanic and electrician until you begin to wonder what you are made of, flesh and blood, or wires and switches. He works by placing his fingers over nerves and nerve relay centers, and this transmits human energizing current into the body. One is first conscious of mild vibration at the point of his touch. Then the vibrations start to move in through one, chase around all over, and turn up in the most startling spots on one's body. This is followed by a sensation of warmth, comforting mild heat penetrating every part, the rapid cessation of pain, and then the complete relaxation of the entire body, and a surge of increased energy and vitality throughout. By the time he has finished tuning your heart, opened the switches, strengthened the magnetic field to let the energy current through, burned out the rust and oiled a few joints, you depart in a state of bewilderment, but relieved of pain and feeling assured you can be helped and life made attractive and livable again. I've lived through it, I know, but I was not satisfied alone with results. I wanted to know how and why. No one can deny the results you get. Almost everyone feels the energy. Almost everyone gets better. What is this energy current? I inquired. It is life ray, human energy on individual wavelengths. To my knowledge, there are 36 different frequencies. Each individual operates on 3 waves at different frequencies, making numerous combinations of magnetic field control. One must complement the energy frequency of the magnetic field of the individual being worked upon. That doesn't make sense to me. I have never heard of such things. I have seen miracles occur here in your office, and I would like to have some explanation. All I can say, all anyone can say is, it is a gift. When did you first know of this power? This knowledge has been with me from my earliest memory, he said. As a youngster, a lot of my time was spent on the shore of a lake fishing, quiet and alone. At that time, by tuning in, the instructions and explanations would come to me. Tuning in? I questioned. Explanations? What explanations? Why? Things, people, life, the world. What is in the world, what we are made of, and why people do the things they do and get into the difficulties they find themselves in. But how do you tune in? I persisted. If you must know, he went on, it is similar to the action of a radio receiving set. You might say that after tuning in on the waves, the answers and explanations come. The theory of electricity as the life force and body activity is as old as the ages, and there are many well-versed in this ancient wisdom to whom most of this is known. This person's medium of operation is universal wisdom. This world we live in is composed of gases and electricity. Plant, animal, and human life are the result of certain electric energy waves acting upon the gases. Plants, animals, and human beings have their own individual energy frequencies to establish and maintain life, growth, and development. In this great universe of earth and sky, space is the great universe, but within it are many more universes. We are familiar with the solar system of our own universe, but there are 2 more with corresponding solar systems in direct influence upon our planet, Earth, and there may be many more in operation. The power, maintenance, and law of life come directly from these 3 systems, uniting or blending to become the one, understood as Trinity or power of powers. The combined action of these 3 forces is our own energy current from the 3 universes, one wavelength from each of the ruling solar suns on a frequency. At birth, the first breath of life is our direct supply, our lifeline with the universal power, life itself. As this force is electric in nature, so then we live, move, and have our being through electric energy. So long as this energy is established and flows through without obstruction, we are in tune with the universal supply of life. When our magnetic field is able to maintain ample contact, we receive knowledge, wisdom, and contentment with the ability to achieve success. In the lower abdomen, the pelvis is an intricate system forming the magnetic field, the grouping together of the main trunk nerves and their branches and relay systems extending throughout the entire body. The lungs draw the energy in, but the magnetic field must draw the energy from the lungs in order to radiate it through the body. We are no stronger than our magnetic field. Physical symptoms: apparent shortness of breath, nervousness, restlessness, irritability, pain, illness, dysfunction are some of the first indications that insufficient energy is being distributed. Their intensity is in accordance with the degree of depletion and spasm of the magnetic field. When the depletion of the magnetic field continues, the nerves are partially starved for their fuel or energy, creating spasm or nerve tension through the body. This depletion develops into many serious ailments. The solar rays give us life unconditionally, but the position of the planets at the time of our birth makes us the individuals we are. Characteristics and personality occur at conception, but individuality occurs at birth with the first breath taken. Your individuality is governed by your set sign, or so-called soul, establishing your magnetic field, which consists of 3 different frequencies derived from the power of powers, making your set sign of life, which is thereafter influenced by the vibrations of all the planets of this universe. For each of us, there are many whose energy current is a complement or mate to our sign or energy. One of the mating energies represents the positive element, and one the negative. For complete function, we must have the flow of both. Nature, being bountiful in all respects, provided for this in the mating of man and woman. The wisdom and its explanations as he gave me is the only textbook he has used, but by faithful adherence to its direction, it has brought him today to the position of so-called miracle healer. They are miracles to us because at sight, they defy explanation to conditions of life familiar to us. The source of wisdom working through this man enables him not only to know what has brought these conditions about, but also, over and above all this, to know wherein lie many of the faults and tribulations of humanity. Every condition he works upon has specific cause behind the effect, which he has investigated and proved over and over again. The unfolding of his mind has been the most tremendous and inspiring experience of my life. In some instances, it has been a slow process. Bits of information at a time that would literally daze me. Glimpses of his stored up knowledge that almost frightened me. When I had time to digest and assimilate these instructions, I questioned, "Who are you?" His answer was, "Who? Me? Why do you ask? I am only an instrument the power operates through. I of myself do nothing. The power does the work. Actually, I am only a mechanic." When he had finished giving me the explanation of universal knowledge as he understands it, I was still left with considerable confusion. Energy, matching energy, fire signs, water signs, mating signs, and fueling our nervous systems were terms quite new to me. The part they played in our life from birth to death was new territory, and in it, I found the answers to the why of so many questions we ask about life, and how to recognize and avoid repeating our mistakes through the coming generations. He took me through the explanation step by step, through all the searching and the checking he has done for years to prove again and again the accuracy and certainty of the universal wisdom. When he had finished, I felt he had taken all my carefully acquired knowledge and teachings, shuffled them like a deck of cards, and had left me to sort out and rearrange them again into new order. As a nurse, I have been familiar with many conditions, mental and physical, all having arisen from maladjustment or incompatibility in sex, marriage, and home life. Patients, acquaintances, and friends have come to me with their stories. Being in this position, I was able to weigh one against the other and found them all similar in nature. Friends with growing, questioning children have come to me for advice. To be better informed on the subject of sex education, I made it a point to read numerous books. They are all fundamentally alike, but none gave any clue as to why the discontentment in so many marriages. What is wrong with marriage? This person has explained it all through the action of our life rays under planetary or energy influences, and I have worked out the proof for myself. I began to explore backward through my own life and my family, then on my friends and acquaintances, and confirmation of the facts met me at every turn. We accept without question the influence of the moon on tides. We never dispute the movement of the sun and the planets controlling the changes of the seasons. We accept the magnetic electrical field governing planetary action. But we are usually skeptical that the sun and planetary movements influence our personality and affairs. Since we are only another form of creation, why should they not regulate or affect us too? Chapter 2: Mechanics. As a student nurse, in my first few months of training, I stood around in amazement listening to the senior nurses and medical students chatter along in medical parlance. It was then a foreign tongue to me, but it was not long until I could listen intelligently and join in the conversation. Listening to this person as he worked and talked, I experienced a similar sensation. He has evolved a lingo of his own, mechanical and electrical terms, with a few descriptive phrases tossed in for good measure. We have had many intense discussions on some of his terms. I would attempt to understand and interpret his explanation of a condition in medical terms, while he struggled to comprehend my viewpoint from a medical definition. We have been surprised many times to discover finally that we were talking about the same thing. One of his most frequent expressions is, "When the signal comes." This is his guide. I have seen him many times listen to the heart vibrations and feel around experimentally over several nerve centers when working on a patient. Then the expression of his face changes. He settles into an eased position and starts to feed the energy into a specified area. Then I know the energy is working through him. In matters of business, he will shape his plans. Then, when he receives the signal, he will go into action with the inevitable successful results. To him, the use of the inner wisdom is constant and as natural as breathing. But I still find words awkward and elusive when I try to tell of the instantaneous perception and recognition he has of each one who enters his office. A patient needs only to rise from his chair in the waiting room, walk into the inner room, and this person seems to recognize his controlling energy current. He also seems to sense the stress, pain, and emotion the patient is experiencing. He then places his ear over the chest and listens to the vibrations of the heart. They register the body and nerve tension and indicate to him the nerve and nerve centers in spasm. How can I analyze and break down into simple terms this ability? There are many things in our world today that we accept without technical understanding. Some people know and can explain them, but even the explanation is not always clearly understood by me. For example, radio. I know vibrations send forth the messages into the atmosphere on stated wavelengths. I know because I have been told. I turn the dials to a specified kilocycle and hear a program. I still do not understand the technicalities, but I accept the fact of its existence because my radio is the proof. That principle applies to this person. He is an animated radio station equipped with a receiving set. I had meant to be facetious the first time I applied the comparison, but to my amazement, I found it to be accurate. Mental telepathy and psychic phenomena are well-known terms for some of the inexplicable happenings we know and experience. But they are not phenomena. They are the inevitable fulfillment of universal wisdom in action. Being controlled by universal power and governed by universal wisdom, everyone is a universe within itself, possessing a sending and receiving set. Some of us are seemingly more highly developed than others and experience psychic wisdom more easily. It is not a gift reserved for a few. It is a wisdom whose application we have been unaware of, But the wisdom is universal and belongs to us, waiting only for our development. There are 3 energy currents, functioning at different frequencies, which determine the individual. There are 12 zodiacal divisions, with their subdivisions, consisting of 36 human energies, which make many different frequency combinations and control life as a whole. To rebuild the nerves, to relax the spasms, and feed the required energy, these energies used by him in his work must match or synchronize with the patient's. At first, reading that sounds improbable until understood. But I have witnessed the use of these energy currents and experienced their sensations. I don't believe even this person's explanation helps much. According to him, he draws the necessary frequency from the atmosphere and generates it through his fingertips. About this point, I would reply, I give up. I can't possibly tell people that and expect them to understand, let alone believe me. He always looks a little puzzled and a little hurt. To him, it is so familiar and so simple that anyone should be able to understand. I questioned, can you find others to teach? There are many people who have a strong energy current of their own for healing that can be further developed, he replied. Some have it and are not aware of it, and others are aware of it and only need instruction. All that is required is persons strong in their own energy. The patients and workers could be grouped so that the frequencies of the workers would synchronize with the human fuel wave of the patients. What do you mean by being strong in his own energy? A child is born with a strong or a weak nervous system, he went on. That is determined at conception and is the result of the energies of the parents. If they are of mated frequencies and are well and strong at the time the child is conceived, that child usually has an easy birth and a strong, healthy nervous system. When he reaches marriageable age, and if he marries one of correctly mated energy, natural feeding continues, health and strength increase, and all the desired requisites of life are fulfilled. If the child is the result of mismated energy currents, and the parents are nervous, discontented, or not well at the time of conception, that child usually has a hard delivery due to the mother's tight nerves, which are caused from inefficient energy fueling. He inherits a weak nervous system and is a victim of low energy and nerve depletion most of his life. The individual with a strong, healthy nervous system generates enough fuel or energy current to maintain his own requirement and automatically radiates a strong surplus. He is the person who is best equipped to heal. He could be instructed to direct the energy through his hands and feed nerves and release nerve spasms in a person with an energy current that blends with his own. This nerve building is going on all the time, only it is seldom recognized or understood. For an example, we'll take a masseuse. Several clients will claim the masseuse has ability to massage, relax, and relieve pain. One client may be able to go several days or a week without pain returning, and even be permanently relieved. Others may get little or no relief from the same masseuse. Those who receive relief have blending energies and by massage are fed, without realizing it, their required current and nerve energy from the masseuse, who is strong enough under her own energy to feed them. Take yourself, a nurse. There must have been times when you had more success in handling patients than others. That is true, I answered. The more successful the results, the more it exhausted me. At the end of such cases, I usually went to bed for several days. You are an example of the delicate nervous system, he said. You relayed energy to others of your compatible wavelength, but the results were exhaustion and depletion in you. How will I know already, never having had sufficient energy to enable me to do the things I wanted to do? This person went on with his explanations. A child born under tension inherits a weak magnetic field. However, the pelvic tensions can be released shortly after birth, enabling the child to draw more energy from the atmosphere, automatically revitalizing itself, by a person with a properly blended fuel who was able to convey the energy to the pelvis of the child. This would eliminate many unpleasant reactions of health. From birth, and through all one's life thereafter, the nervous system is constantly acted upon and influenced by the waves radiating from all human contacts. The position of the planets at the moment of birth represents the influence exerted upon one's personality from the 3 ruling solar suns. The combination of the radiation from each sun at different frequencies establishes one's very life. At the moment of birth, the first breath taken determines the pattern of the individual. According to astrologers, that individual will be a fire, earth, air, or water sign. That first energy charge determines or establishes the magnetic field and individuality of one, but it is influenced in many ways by contact with others of different wave energies. There are compatible wave energies, neutral wave energies, and negative wave energies, and those waves or energy currents act within our field similarly to those of mechanically generated electricity in electric appliances. Compatible or matching wave energies together generate 2 energy currents as required for magnetic fuel. It is the contact of the 2 energy currents which blends the positive and negative action of the human electric energy and charges the human magnetic field. Compatible wave energies are, as a general rule, 2 in kind: earth with earth, fire with fire, air with air, water with water, providing the individuals are of a different birth month, but matching frequency, although many alterations can occur by the different planetary positions. Negative wave energies are 2 waves of different brands, relatively speaking, unless the exact planetary positions are known. That is, earth with air, fire with water, etc. Their combined action causes a depletion of the magnetic field, thereby causing it to lose its drawing power or human energy taken in by the lungs. 2 waves of the same wave energies are neutral, earth with earth, fire with fire, etc., when the individuals are of the same birth month and are not feeders. They, ordinarily, do not create a fuel. They blend and act as one brand. They are duplicate in type and will set up a fuel starvation in the field. With the depletion in the magnetic field, the proper amount of fuel is not taken in, and slow starvation of the nervous system begins and continues over a period of years. These are the general principles. There are finer divisions and gradations when applied individually, for our own wave energy is our individualization. Each wave energy should be matched with proper percentages or proportions of the correct blend. But this is not the time nor place to go into these finer details. Distribution of our own energy current goes on continuously from the electric energy force we breathe. By radiation, we partially influence the field of every person we come in contact with, and, in like manner, they influence us. This is constantly having its effect on our magnetic field, thereby affecting our nervous system. If our own generation is strong, the cross energies from others have little or no effect on our nerves. If we are weakened or depleted, reaction is likely to set up in the magnetic field. This is greatly emphasized on personal contact, such as in handling a baby. In the growing child, the needed feeding of the nerves must come by radiation from his associates. During this period, his nervous system is strengthened and built up, or weakened and depleted. If the child's energy current blends with that of the father or mother, he will be soothed, nourished, and built up by contact with that parent. There will be harmony and understanding between the child and that parent, and the child will seek instinctively to be with him or with her as much as possible. When the wave energies are in opposition, there is nervousness and friction between the child and parent. If both parents oppose his wave energy, there is the possibility of a problem child. The child may be delicate, high-strung, and his nature a mystery to his parents. When the child reaches school age, he will select his own playmates. They may seem a motley crew, but he is drawn most naturally to companions of a blended energy, which is, without his realization, fuel to him. Those associations will automatically feed this depletion. When he doesn't find the matching fuel to feed his nerves, he will prefer to play alone. Perhaps he was a thin, nervous, and irritable child until he started school, but after a while began to improve. The reason is that his nerves are receiving their much-needed fuel. In instances where the mother's wave energy is opposed to the child's wave energy, the problem is greater because of the closer and more prolonged contacts between mother and child. The child is apt to be nervous and difficult to deal with. Outside associates will counteract this condition to a degree. A compatible energy helps to build up and restore the irritated nerves, but not sufficiently to balance the longer relationship in the home. When that individual marries, the pattern is then more or less set for his life. Marriage to a person of correctly mated energy will rapidly feed and restore the depleted nerves, and in a few years' time a tremendous change will have taken place. He will have developed and undergone a complete change in personality and conduct. With a relaxed nervous system, his prospects of health and success are highly favorable. If he marries one of an opposing energy, the results are, of course, the contrary. Little feeding can occur. The magnetic field is partially depleted, and as a result, there is starvation of the nerves. In such cases, this condition sets up a restless searching and discontentment. The greatest handicap for a child is to have his mother in an opposing energy. The child is, of course, in constant relationship with his mother, and the opposing energy thrust upon him lasts over a long period of time. Hence, in those dependent years, the greatest damage is done to the nervous system. With this understanding, it is advisable to plan, if possible, to have children born under the most favorable conditions. They should be compatible energy currents to both parents, if possible. If not, then to the mother, because of the greater period of close contact. Early marriage to one of a compatible energy is the greatest insurance for building a healthy body and living under the happiest and most desirable circumstances. Chapter 3. Nerve Fuel. All life exists with the power to reproduce in kind. We are given not only the ability to reproduce, but the task of nourishing and fueling each other through the positive and negative formation, in this way increasing the strength of our magnetic field to bring our bodies and minds to the highest level of health and vitality. All the organs of the body, including the heart, are in reality nerve structures working as a unit by means of human energy. The magnetic field radiates energy to all parts of the body through the nerves and nerve relay centers and their branches. The brain receives the energy current, distributes it to all controlling centers, and relays the impulse back along the returning nerve channels. As he explained it to me, the brain is one of the important switchboards of the body, similar to an automatic switchboard in a telephone office, which receives the incoming message and relays it through the wire to its proper and specified destination. As the energy travels upward into the brain cells, we walk, talk, and react as intelligent, coordinated human beings. I have grown used to this person's reference to nerves as cords and wires. Wires is the more apt description. He demonstrated to me by placing his fingers on my body and increasing the human energy in one specific nerve trunk at a time. I had immediate relief from pain and proper function of the area controlled by that nerve. Sometimes it was my hip, my shoulder, my leg, or my heart. I was astonished, but convinced. I remember saying, "Why, we are nothing but puppets strung on wires." He laughed. Actually, that is all we are, and human energy through those wires operates us. As is known, our own required energy current is taken in through the air we breathe. When the period of adolescence is past, and as we become matured adults, our body requirements change. For continued smooth functioning, the nervous system requires and demands a greater supply of the human energy force, our own, plus the mating energy. This blending is created through the sex relationship with one of our properly mated wave energies, which is nature's method of keeping the magnetic field vital. Every parent has to meet the problem of explaining sex to the growing, inquisitive child. But how many understand the purpose behind it all? Nature's purpose is reproduction of the race, but even though reproduction is controlled by many, nerve fueling is imperative through normal sex life without insulation in order to maintain health. If those entering into marriage are instructed in its true significance beforehand, most of the hazards can be eliminated, providing they choose a compatible energy which blends with theirs. Children resulting from these marriages are, as a rule, healthy and normal. One of the main fueling nerves in connection with the magnetic field in women is the clitoris nerve. This nerve is important to the magnetic field in rehabilitating and vitalizing it through natural sex life, thus enabling it to draw sufficient energy from the atmosphere through the lungs in order that the heart and other organs will receive their proportion of energy. When the clitoris nerve is dormant, it does not properly relay the fuel to the magnetic field. With a partial dormancy of the magnetic field as a result, there is insufficient distribution of the energy and nervous tension increases. Over a period of time, definite symptoms appear. These are manifested in heart strain, shortness of breath symptoms, sinus, bronchial trouble, eczema, allergies, indigestion, supposedly ulcers, headaches, pain, and stiffness of the neck and shoulders, as well as being put unjustly in the class of neurotic. One would be surprised at the elements which originate from this source. These complications also have their effect upon the nervous system of the husband. As he receives an insufficient amount of his required nerve fuel from his wife, his nervous system begins to react from starvation of nerve energy. Tension and irritability increase, and friction may start in the home through understimulated nerves. As a rule, woman is slower to animate than man, but when stimulated, she will automatically start generating. However, she must receive the generation in return from him. He should have the wisdom to generate energy to her in order to complete the revitalization of their magnetic fields. Otherwise, she, being more sensitive, will eventually cease generating to him and accept the act as a marital duty. Fueling of the magnetic field may also cease as a result of opposing energies. When the wave energies are not properly blended, there follows a feeling of dissatisfaction or depletion which many people don't comprehend. Women are more likely to be victims of a partial dormancy of the magnetic field. This dormancy is usually caused by shock or injury of the clitoris nerve sustained during the first sex act. This is unintentional and is usually due to lack of knowledge of the importance these nerves play in our health. If a man understood this importance to himself and to his wife, he would take all the care necessary to avoid shock and injury to those delicate nerves. When the clitoris is aroused, all the other nerves are relaxed. Muscles and tissue are receptive, and injury and pain by force are unnecessary. Nature provided for all these things, but we have misunderstood and misused our wisdom. Prevention through understanding is always the best remedy, and that prevention lies in teaching our children. When it is understood that the purpose of cohabitation is replenishing the race and also feeding the nervous system, then that force is given its true value. The energy thus generated controls the machinery, and when the machinery runs smoothly, it can be forgotten. With properly matched wave energies, this is demonstrated. The desire then assumes its proper place, and, in all contexts of daily living together, the feeding goes on by radiation. I talked with a young couple, husband and wife, and watched their progress under the theory outlined. They were an example of the consequences of opposing wave energies. With a partial dormancy of the magnetic field in both, he was a fire wave energy, and she was an earth wave energy. 8 months before, he had come as a critically ill man, but today he is well and normal. This is his experience as he told it to me. I was sick before I began taking these treatments. I just about couldn't go any further. I had a bad back and heart. Everything was the matter with me. I had been seeing a doctor for some time, but was just getting worse. He couldn't seem to do anything for me. I was taking shots twice a week, then every other day, and finally every day, but I continually grew weaker. I had reached the point where I couldn't eat or sleep. After the first 2 treatments, I didn't notice much difference, except that I could breathe more deeply. He was interrupted and asked, "When was it you ate the steaks?" That was after my first treatment. He laughed a little embarrassedly. When I left here, I felt hungry for the first time in years and decided a steak would taste good. I went into a restaurant and ordered it. Boy, it was good, but I was still hungry, so I had a second one. For weeks before, that food sickened me, but that day it took 2 steaks to fill me up. I haven't missed a meal since. I got over everything quickly. After the 3rd visit, I began to feel wonderful. I went back home entirely well after 10 treatments. My work isn't easy, but I went back on the job at once and haven't had a sick day since. I brought my wife up this time, and I am just having a few treatments for good measure while I am here. According to this theory, when he first came for treatment, he had a depleted magnetic field and nerve spasm and a troublesome heart. His wife is in the same condition now, depleted magnetic field, a wild heart, and had migraine headaches. They have 3 children, but never at any time has she had a response during sex relations, according to her. Her clitoris was dormant with inevitable depletion of the magnetic field, and now she has a severe heart strain. There was very little, if any, generation or feeding of the energy current between them. Their magnetic fields just shorted. When they are rehabilitated, they will probably be relieved from their difficulties for some time because they are both of good, strong stock. "You don't know what it is going to mean having my wife well again," the husband said earnestly. "She has been in bed a good part of the time. With 3 little children, it has been hard. My family doctor wasn't able to help her, although he told me what was the matter with both of us just as you did. He explained it a little differently than you do, but he said there was nothing anybody could do about it. The doctors apparently don't know what to do for people like us. I'm going to take my wife in to see him when we go back, have him check on her, and tell him about this work. I think he will be very interested." The wife showed her illness. She looked frail and nervous. Her heart was wild. I put my fingers on her pulse. It was rapid and irregular, and her breathing was fast and shallow. This person said, "That heart is too wild now to tune. For a day or 2, her magnetic field will have to be revitalized. Then her heart can be tamed and cushioned." The 3rd day, he was ready to tune her heart. "Put your fingers on her pulse and see what happens," he told me. I put my fingers on her wrist, and he put his fingers first on her chest, the back of her neck, and then between her ribs near the heart. The quality of her pulse changed first. It became stronger, and the beat firmer under my fingers. Then gradually it began to slow down, and the volume improve, the beat growing regular. In about 3 minutes, her pulse was beating at a normal rhythm and rate. Her respiration slowed and became deeper, and the look of strain and apprehension was erased from her face. At the end of 10 visits, she was a different appearing young woman. She was relaxed, smiling, and rested looking. They returned home 2 very happy people. She should go on improving and growing stronger, this person told me. The energy current through her field will continue working for some time. All the nerve structures will receive their quota of energy now that the spasm is released from her heart, until the field again becomes depleted. It won't give her trouble for some time. Under these conditions, both of them can go on without difficulty until their magnetic fields need revitalizing. But they will need revitalizing from time to time because of their mismated wave frequencies. However, they aren't apt to get in that rundown condition again for some time. In different people, different sets of nerves may be affected, creating different symptoms, but the cause is still the same: depletion of the magnetic field and spasms from lack of properly blended fuel. I talked with one young woman where such was the case. Her recovery was spectacular, and it has completely baffled and mystified her. She told me all her symptoms and her search for help. I don't remember how many doctors I actually consulted, but each one gave me a different opinion. I thought I had stomach trouble because I had had severe pains in my stomach for years. When I had an attack, my abdomen swelled out until I could hardly breathe. Every doctor I saw wanted to operate, and each one wanted to operate for a different reason. I wouldn't agree to an operation because I never felt sure they knew what was the matter with me. For the past year, I have had severe pains in the back of my legs. 4 months ago, I had an attack in my back. It was torture to get around. I saw a doctor who treated me, but I just got worse, so I stopped the treatments. A neighbor told me about this form of treatment. She had great confidence in it and urged me to try it. I had reached the point where I didn't care anymore because I had been to so many doctors and none of them helped me. I came to this person to satisfy her, not myself. I was badly swollen that day, hardly able to breathe. He didn't have his fingers on me for more than 10 seconds when he said to me, "Now, where is your stomach?" I looked down and almost fell out of the chair. The swelling was gone. It was miraculous. It just wasn't there at all. I was flat again and could breathe deeply for the first time in 3 years. When I got outside, I just stood a while and took great, deep breaths of the fresh air. I think this work is wonderful. I've never known anything like it in my life. I still can't get over what happened to me. Why, all the swelling was gone. Just like that. Instantly. I had 5 treatments, and in that time I had 2 attacks. The first one came on suddenly after dinner, but by the next morning it was gone. Then I had another mild one that didn't last long. I have had none since. The pains in my legs disappeared after the first treatment and have never recurred. I am almost through with my series of treatments, and I feel just wonderful. This again is just another manifestation of nerves in spasm from lack of the required mating fuel. The depleted magnetic field affected the nerve supply to the stomach and intestines. The spasm of the nerves created a ballooning of the bowel, producing all the pain and distress she complained of. All the treatments she had from doctors did not release the nerve spasm fully, and there was no matching energy current to build and feed the magnetic field and nervous system. When this person fed the correct mating fuel through his fingertips into the magnetic field, the spasm released in a matter of seconds, and the abdominal swelling disappeared. It collapsed as if by magic. With the spasm and tension released, she could breathe deeply, bring a full supply of her own wave into her magnetic field, blend it with the correct energy being distributed, and send the mixture out over her entire nervous system. When the energy had completed its full circuit, she was relieved of all pain. The magnetic field and the branches involved were consequently weakened due to the length of time of the depletion of the magnetic field, thus causing spasm. The 2 recurring attacks she had were the result of weakened nerves not being able to retain the energy, but the attacks were milder and shorter. After the first release of the spasm, it was a matter of rehabilitating the nerves to full strength for a conduction of the energy current. Chapter 4: Heart Energy. I am continually amazed and at a loss for words to attempt to explain the results this person gets with hearts. He doesn't have any words to tell me exactly. He just does things to them until they are right. A medical diagnosis, as to the type of heart trouble the patient has, means nothing to him. He only knows what the heart vibrations tell him. The heart is a motor to him, and he tunes it to sound. He slows it down or perks it up. He takes the gurgles and the swishes out. When it jerks, he steadies it. When it pounds, he cushions it. When it flops around, he anchors it. And when it is wild, he tames it. If he finds tension or pull, he traces a cord or nerve to the part of the body in spasm. He may trace it to a spasm in the calf of the leg or ankle, even the big toe, and release the tension on the heart at that point. It doesn't make sense, but it gets results. When he has finished, there is a new heart in place of a worn-out one. The most incredible part of it all is that the patient is unaware of any changes going on, because this person has such absolute control in regulating the energy at all times. As he feeds the energy current into the rebellious nerves, they begin to react in groups independently of each other. He synchronizes the tensions in the heart and has them working in coordination and, unbelievably, this is usually accomplished within a few minutes. The nerves around the heart and those inside begin to react. They have to be dealt with and defeated. Each set eventually gives up the struggle. The nerves finally accept the flow of the energy current and start their coordinated control and operation. The tuning takes place periodically until the heart is under control and performing as it should. This may go on for several days until the spasms cease, and then again there may only be one struggle until the rhythm is established. Further work builds and feeds the nerves until a normal heart is the result. Watching him work and listening to him talk, I have been convinced that he hears many delicate sounds and movements an ordinary ear or device does not hear. If so, the sounds have never been interpreted. Before he starts to work on anyone, he first listens to the heart vibrations by placing his right ear on the chest of the patient. In a matter of seconds, he can identify the nerves in spasm. He doesn't know how he does it. He just hears those things. When I questioned him as to how he knew exactly which nerve to put his fingers over, he said, "Why, the vibrations just told me it was that one." That seems to be the only explanation. Vibrations must talk to him. When I finally pinned him down to a more specific explanation, this is what he told me. Fundamentally, all hearts are alike. It is the nerve spasms in each person that vary. The heart vibrations register nerve pull or spasm anywhere in the body. It may be in the feet, legs, or brain. The nerve trunks have to be released, and that relieves the tension of the heart. When the tension is gone, the heart has to be tuned by balancing the energy in the nerves that have been struggling and fighting each other. That is, by anchoring it. Then the magnetic field has to be fed so that it can carry on the work of supply and control. If you must have a formula, this is it. The power, relayed through me as a mechanic, tunes the heart to sound and anchors it. It then increases the vitality of the basic control of the heart, which is the magnetic field, thus increasing the flow of the life fuel to the heart. It stimulates the nerve energy to throw off the poisons through the kidneys, causing heavy flushing of the kidneys for several days. I can't get over the results you get by releasing tight cords and legs. It's the craziest thing I ever saw or heard, but I have watched you do it and it works every time. I thought hearts were hearts and legs were legs. Tight leg cords are some of the worst offenders, he went on. The leg cords pull on the magnetic field, creating the strain there, and that promptly registers on the heart. Until those legs are free from spasm and the heart is regulated, the patient should keep pretty quiet. Climbing hills and stairs causes a strain on the magnetic field and cuts the supply to the heart. If a patient has a severe heart strain, it is better for him to go upstairs backward, as there isn't as much strain on the magnetic field that way. Many people take longer to regulate than they should. After the spasms are taken out, they feel pretty good. Then they go out and do some sort of work or exercise and set the nerves off into a spasm again. What about the different kind of heart diseases? I asked. Anginas and coronaries, for instance. Names don't mean anything to me. They're just all spasms pulling on the heart. There's a difference in sound in all hearts. Anyone who has had rheumatic fever usually has valves blowing. You hear gurgles and swishes that you don't hear in others. There is a very definite sound, a peculiar cluck, in the heart when there is tension from the brain. Every case of insanity or mental condition that has come to me has that funny cluck sound in the heart. When that is released, the mind seems to be cleared. One was so violent that he had to be held down on the floor for me to work on him. I, on the other hand, know the names, but very little about the conditions. I know what a heart is doing by the feel of the pulse, and I know the emergency measures to take when anyone is having an attack, but I don't know what is going on inside. I do know that most angina sufferers are dependent upon nitroglycerin tablets, and I know the part the drug plays in the relief of the attack. Following are two histories of typical heart cases as they were told to me. Mr. A had angina. He said, "I have seen 7 doctors in 3 years and haven't had any help. One doctor gave me small tablets of nitroglycerin to kill the pain. It began with a heavy feeling around my heart. Then the pain would start in my chest and travel up my neck and into my head. It was severe pain too. Then it would travel down both arms, and my arms would become so heavy I could not lift them. The attacks became more frequent and more severe. I had to give up work and just rest all the time. When I came here first, I was taking 7 and 8 of these little tablets a day. I had heard about this remarkable theory and decided to try the treatments. After the second treatment, I could breathe very much better and deeper. When he first came here, he had wild vibrations in his heart. His magnetic field was in spasm. There was very little energy going to his heart, resulting in the sharp pains. Energy had to be generated into his magnetic field. When the energy, generated through this person, was tuning his heart, it put up a fight. It took about 10 minutes to control the spasms before he could go home. He is responding nicely now. His heart is anchored and has just about quit fighting. He is still a little low on energy, and the magnetic field has to be built until it is stronger. In 12 treatments, Mr. A continued, I was very much better. My breathing was easier, and I was taking less and less of the pills. First, I went 2 days on 1 pill, and now it has been 8 days since I took the last. If I get nervously upset, the pain will start, but all I need to do is rest quietly and breathe deeply, and the pain goes away. I was walking to the post office the other morning and I had a few sharp pains. I had been swinging along, walking too fast, so I rested a minute. Then I went on slowly, and I was perfectly all right again. I am living with my daughter and my young granddaughter. Her friends sometimes get pretty noisy and active and make me nervous, so that I have to send them away or get away from them. Then I am all right. It was suggested that I try going upstairs, backward. It never bothers my breathing when I do. My granddaughter will watch me and say, "Backing up again, Gramp?" I have had 17 treatments now, and am so much better. I notice I am a little low on energy by the time I get here. I often have a heavy feeling in my chest, but the treatment relieves that immediately. I haven't any pain to speak of, and my breathing is fine. I sleep all night now. Before I began taking these treatments, I was in and out of bed all night. Breathing would be hard and my heart very heavy, so that I would have to get up every once in a while. I would do that several times and think, guess I'll have to take old Reliable. So I would take a pill and get a little rest. Now I sleep all night and feel greatly improved. I feel very grateful as I have been helped immensely. Mr. M experienced a remarkable recovery from the hands of this person. Here is the story of his illness in detail as he gave it to me. It doesn't seem logical that he can be a well man today, but he is. I have since become acquainted with Mr. and Mrs. M, and even find it hard to believe he was ever as sick as he describes. I was a well robust youngster, Mr. M began, as good as the best of them. At 7, I had Bright's disease and dropsy, following just a mild case of scarlatina. The illness left me weak, thin, and nervous. I was never any account so far as strength was concerned. When I was 21, I was 6 feet tall and weighed 95 pounds, just skin and bone. I could do some yard work in the vineyard, but no field work. If I took it slow and easy, I was pretty well, but I was never able to walk fast or run. If I walked fast, I got pain around my heart, and sometimes it felt as if it were going to stop. I had periods of up and down. When I was 28 years old, I felt better and stronger for a time. I worked in the vineyards in the winter and spring getting the raisins dried. It was June when my work was finished and I went away on a vacation. When I arrived, I decided to have a sweat bath. I thought it might rest and relax me and take the poisons out. I had the bath and went to bed early that night. About 11 o'clock, I got an awful start in my heart. I felt as if I were dying. I got out of bed onto the floor. My heart pounded and everything went black. I was fading out, and it feels as if my heart were stopping. I thrashed around on the floor to get some action in my heart, to start it beating again. The family got me into a hot bath and I came out of the attack slowly. My heart settled down, but I still thought the end had come. When they got me back to bed, I had a chill and shook all over. I was sick all that summer and winter. I had more chills, but never as bad a spell with my heart as that. Then, I got a little stronger. I am not a person to stay in bed. I would get up and put my clothes on even if I could go no farther than the chair in the room. I gradually got a little stronger. In February, I went south and slowly recovered in the sunshine. I got back to the best level I had ever reached. I went along for a number of years with the usual ups and downs. I tried school and various things, but would break down and have to give them up. I had another spell like the first, but pulled out of that. In all those years, and for all those spells, I had seen doctor after doctor. I can't remember the number I saw, but I never had any help from them. I would go through checkups, blood, kidneys, heart, x-rays, physical examinations, everything. They never did find anything wrong with me, nor did they help me. I was through with doctors. It seemed useless to try to find any cure. I went on by myself with those attacks. I just never expected any kind of health. When I was 41, I married. That was 10 years ago. I gradually picked up and had a period of where I was much better. My stomach improved and I began eating a greater variety of foods, but I wasn't able to eat spicy foods. I gained weight and went up to 157 pounds, the best I ever reached. I was much stronger and was getting around on the ranch when I picked up a germ they called valley fever, and for some reason, it weakened me again. I was pretty sick, and the old spells came back. I had terrible chills and fever. I went right down to skin and bone and all the old weakness again. Gradually, I got over the chills, but I didn't get over being cold and feeling faint most of the time. When I was lying down in bed, my heart would pound and thump. It would vibrate and shake the bed. At first, my wife didn't realize that it was my heart beating. She would feel the bed shaking and thought I was lying awake nervously drumming or tapping my fingers. That condition went on for several years. Finally, I decided to have another physical checkup and get some help if possible. So I went to another doctor. I had a thorough checkup and examination, but he could find nothing wrong. X-rays, blood tests, all were negative. My blood pressure was all right. All the doctor could find was a fast heart and the awful weakness, and he didn't know what to do for that. Just a short time after that, we went north. In the hotel, I was told about this method. The one who recommended it had been helped by this person and spoke of his work very highly. She told me that he had great healing power in his hands. My mother, who was with us, called him in. I saw him work, had immediate confidence in him, and decided to have a treatment. The first treatment I had from him put me to bed for 3 days. It exhausted me. I was so relaxed I couldn't get out of bed. I had no desire to. He didn't have his fingers on me more than 2 minutes when I began to sweat. The sweat poured out from my arms and ran down my hands into puddles on the floor. It was the strangest thing I ever saw. It took me 3 days to gather a little strength to get out of the bed, and several more days before we could start back to the ranch. By the time we got home, I felt wonderful. All the years I had been ill, my color was very bad, a pasty yellowish hue, and my skin was dry. I always looked ill. Several days after we got home, I went over the ranch inspecting everything as I hadn't been able to do for years. I didn't feel weak, and I didn't feel tired. My color and appearance had already started to change and improve. After that day, everyone around at the place was wondering what I had been doing. 10 days later, I went back for the second treatment, and the same thing happened all over again. He laid me out flatter than a hotcake. Anybody who could keep me in bed was doing something. I had never stayed in bed, but now I didn't want to get up. I had no desire to move. He took all the starch out of me and gave me complete relaxation. A week later, I was back on the ranch feeling wonderful. Everybody commented on it and I talked about it all day long. My foreman was a sick man. I didn't think he could last much longer. I felt so sure this form of treatment could help him that I sent him up and paid his expenses. After the first treatment, he was more of a booster than I was. He is a well man today and has half the valley people going up for treatment. I had talked things over and I knew that I would get nowhere with just an occasional treatment. So I arranged my affairs at the ranch and went back to take a series of consecutive treatments. Once I got started with the regular treatments, I didn't think I could go through with them. I was sick, I tell you. I went through hell. No, maybe you had better not put that in, but I suffered everything. I sweated gallons as all that fluid, that body bloat, came out of the pores of my skin. This person explained that when Mr. M came to him seeking help, his vibrations indicated spasm of the magnetic field. His heart was going about 135, and it sounded like valves blowing, causing a slushy sound. He had to be released from tension. The nerve energies had to be increased to force the poisons through his pores and kidneys. Then the valves had to be ground by building the nerves that control them. Mr. M continued. I didn't know how I was going to go on with it. I was so sick. One morning when I felt I couldn't keep on, I phoned my wife and she came up. After she arrived, I felt better about everything. She took over ordering my meals, read to me, and looked after me. She made me feel better, not so alone. He was sick when I got there. Mrs. M took over the story. He was like a man in the midst of a nervous breakdown. He would say to me, I can't stand all this. It's too much. He must cut down and skip a few treatments. He doesn't realize how sick I am and I can't stand it. I'll tell him when he comes that he must cut back. He must listen to me. Yes, I remember that, Mr. M resumed. I was all ready to tell him when he arrived, but as soon as he walked into the room, I would feel better. I could feel the strength and power radiate from him, and I took it in. He would start to work on me, and I would never say a word. When I began to feel well enough to get up, I felt as if I were recovering from a nervous breakdown. Things bothered me. I was relieved of the tension, but my nerves were let down. I felt insecure. We began to go out of the hotel, and the first few days on the street, I could only go a few steps. I had to take my wife's arm, and I couldn't watch moving things. It took 1 week before I could walk 1 block, as my heart was still weak from the years of strain on it. He had to relieve the nervous tension first before he could build me up. Then I went right straight up. I popped up. He told me he was giving me straight building energy, and in 1 week, I didn't know myself. When I got back to the ranch, I got right into the midst of things as it was harvest time. I didn't get tired. I didn't worry, and there was cause to because of the difficulty of getting workers then. I raced all over the place and amazed everybody. I ate well and I slept soundly and awakened fresh and relaxed. In 4 or 5 weeks, I had put on 20 pounds. Everybody spoke of the change in me, especially my color and the appearance of my skin. Old friends I hadn't seen in a long time hardly knew me. Everything about me improved, even my eyes. I had worn glasses and had expected to get stronger ones, but didn't need to. Right now I can sit and read fine print for 4 or 5 hours and never notice it. I am better and stronger all the time. I go up occasionally for a few touch-up treatments to keep myself in line. This person has made me a well man. He has given me health I never had and did not ever expect to have. He has great healing power, and I believe his knowledge needs to be given out to the world and his work taught. Chapter 5: Life Energy Control. Any paralyzed part of the body has an unhealthy white color and a marked coldness. I watched with great interest whenever this person brought a paralyzed arm or leg back to life. In a matter of minutes, the skin took on a healthier color tone, and with my hand on the arm or leg, I could feel the warmth start to radiate through it. Usually a person's first reaction is the feeling of warmth, a warmth that starts from the fingertips of this person and travels through like the slow flowing of a river. Many patients with other conditions of illness have told me the same thing. The first evidence of improvement is returning body warmth and relief from constant coldness and chilling, and the heavy feeling leaving the afflicted area. I commented on this fact to him. What do you do to cause the blood to start circulating to make a paralyzed arm or leg begin to get warm again? Why, he said, it's not the blood circulating that does it. It is the electric energy circulating through the nerves. Here we go again, I thought. I suppose you just press the right button and the lights go on all over. Just about, he said, but saw no humor in my remark. The paralyzation is caused by insufficient flow of energy, and when the energy goes through dormant nerves, the area becomes warm. Do you mean to say that the nerves do that? I thought it was a slowed down circulation that was not bringing the body heat down to those parts. Why, isn't it the bloodstream, the circulation of the blood, that keeps you warm? Don't all sorts of chemical processes heat the blood to control body temperature? There followed an intense discussion. I got out my textbooks and checked on what I had been taught. In return, I received an enlightening lecture on human electrical engineering. These are his explanations applied to the human body. A paralyzed leg is dead white or even bluish white in color. It is cold to the touch, and the patient complains that it is always cold and heavy. Blankets or heating appliances warm it for a little while, but it does not stay warm. How could there be anything the matter with the mechanics of the circulation? All the blood is there. Cut that leg and the veins and arteries will bleed just like an ordinary leg. Can't a patient bleed to death from a paralyzed leg just as easily as from one that isn't? In every paralyzed case he has worked on, the energy is partially shut off from the magnetic field, and there is a greater shutoff from a specified relay distributing center. He first sends a charge to the magnetic field increasing its energy, thus enabling it to distribute the energy to all parts of the body, and then generates the energy to the specified dormant nerves. He must open the circuits of the afflicted nerves by increasing the volume or intensity of the energy and putting through a heavy dose to wake up those nerves that haven't been working properly. The heat they feel is the increased volume of the human energy. The human energy current is similar to any electrical current and frequency. It acts only on the human body and vice versa. The body is not geared to take mechanically generated electrical currents. The nerves will not retain them. They act only as a shock. Even though there is paralysis, the nerve is still alive. Enough energy is seeping through to keep it alive, but not enough to give it proper energy. When the nerve dies, doesn't the tissue die and gangrene set in? When he releases the paralysis and reestablishes the energy circuit, the patient may get the greater portion of the use back, but it doesn't always last. The nerves may become dormant again, although usually not to the same extent, due to insufficient energy flowing through them. He must keep energizing them each time until the weakness is out, and they are conducting the energy smoothly and evenly. This to him is the main principle of body heat, the human electric current. The nerve wires and nerve relay centers from the magnetic field are the controls conducting life energy. The bloodstream plays a dependent role to them. The red blood cells are the electrons. Each cell carries its measure of electricity and deposits it in organs and tissues. When the circuits to various parts are shut off, the electrical content of the blood cell is insufficient to produce normal body heat. The blood cells then can only maintain the health of the nerve tissues. I have watched this principle work for years, but I gave it no thought as such. A newborn baby is cold. The human fetus is cold-blooded. and it takes some time after birth for the baby's heat-regulating center to establish. In the nursery, we had to watch the baby's temperatures constantly to keep them warm. When a baby was cold and not a good color, we always stimulated it to cry. After it had yelled a while and filled its lungs, its color was better and it was warmer. With the first breath the baby takes, it comes alive, and every breath thereafter brings in more of its energy. It is the electric energy traveling through the nervous system that begins to warm it. When I made a baby cry to take in more oxygen, that was what was happening. I have handled hundreds of babies and watched that process repeat. A newborn baby will verify this theory. The first breath of life is the first charge of the battery, the magnetic field. This first intake of the electric current magnetizes the lower pelvis. The electric energy taken into the lungs by breathing is carried down to the magnetic field by magnetic gravity. From the base of the lungs to the magnetic field are nerves acting as wires to conduct the energy through. With the first breath, the magnetic field is magnetized instantly to one's own brand of electric current, his own specific wavelength, and it is the full intake of his own wave with each breath thereafter that supplies the fuel that is generated into nerve energy. It is the depletion of the magnetic field, not being able to draw enough energy from the lungs, that gives the feeling of shortage of breath. It is the charge to the magnetic field that allows the patient to take a deep breath, seemingly way down to the pelvis, for the first time since the original depletion or spasm occurred. With the energy going through the so-called nerve wires, the lower abdominal muscles expand and contract rhythmically with breathing. The air passage feels open all the way down to the bottom, or at least this is how the patient expresses it. The magnetic field is conducting the incoming electric or energy current, distributing it through the body, maintaining body heat. A weakened magnetic field means a gradual shutting off of the nerve fuel throughout. The nerves shrink from inadequate fuel supply. Their activity becomes less and less. As that happens, the system slows down. All body functions are under par. Paralysis from a stroke is a violent seizure. Depletion is a slow process with much the same results, but involving the entire body. People come in with skins white or colorless. There is no natural warmth there. Eyes are dull and lifeless looking. They complain of tightness and aches all over the body, neck, back, and legs. They have no pep, no energy. They can't keep warm. They are nervous and do not sleep well. Many have calcium deposits in joints. The magnetic field is gradually shutting down from starvation of its natural fuel requirement. He charges the magnetic field by feeding the required fuel to the depleted or starved nerves. The first thing the patient notices is warmth, which is the heat of the human electric waves going through all the nerves. The energy, recognized as heat by the patient, begins to relax and release the nerves and cords, and the patient gets more freedom to move around. When the nerve building is completed, the tension is released. There is normal color to the skin, and it is warm to the touch. He has fed and built the magnetic field with the correct mating fuel, and the magnetic field is now generating normally. Body heat is maintained, and the entire system picks up its full activity. When the natural mating current is lacking, people are aware of a craving. They seek to satisfy it with surplus foods. They eat, they believe, for energy and strength. What they receive from the surplus foods or drink is only a temporary surge of energy. The nerves are not being fed. In many cases, allergies to food occur or indigestion. How can all the drugs and surplus foods or drinks replace the natural mating current that the nerves are craving? I have watched the recovery of many of these types of ailments. Nerve depletion, fuel and energy starvation. The pattern of recovery is interesting. Interesting to the onlooker, but puzzling and aggravating to the sufferer. In cases of long-standing nerve tensions, when the patient is coming out of this condition, all the symptoms of his illness and depletion repeat themselves, in reverse order. The nervous system is sluggish and in spasm. The correct mixture of the energy current is then fed into the magnetic field. As the energy current begins to travel through the nerves, they react. The sensitivity is restored and they go through all the stages that they went through when going into the process of their slow starvation. The physical symptoms repeat as the nerves accept the energy current and a new level of vitality is being maintained. These are the disconcerting stages. The patient finds it harder to believe that he is being helped. He feels he isn't getting better. He feels exactly as he did 6 months, 1 year, or 2 years ago. In these cases, recovery is slow. Treatment must go on for some time, slowly building the whole nervous system back to normal strength and vitality, but when that stage is reached, all the symptoms have gradually faded out, and almost everyone boasts of feeling at least 10 years younger. This person has told me he has watched many recoveries over a period of years. When the nervous system is well built, the body finds its own level. The majority of the thin people gain, and those who are bloated lose without dieting. When the proper nerve energy level is reached, body chemistry and metabolism are normally regulated. Our bodies are complete universes. We have the ability to conduct and control ourselves independently of man-made requirements or restrictions. The key to life and living is the flow of energy. Conduction of the human electric current governs its function and heals or prevents its ailments. Our own direct wave from the ruling solar suns is life itself, our own solar system or magnetic field. In talking about generation of energy, he said, "The lack of knowledge on the subject is surprising. In discussing human generation, most people look at me entirely blank, and yet it is in the world all about them. In animals, it is natural. People see it every day and do not seem to recognize what they see. In wild animal life, it functions normally. The domesticated animal is subject to the afflictions of so-called civilization. Animals understand generation of energy and use it when necessary. Have you ever gone into a barn where there are horses and cows in freezing weather? When you open the door and walk in, the first sensation is warmth. The barn seems warm. Why? Because each healthy animal is, in generation, warming himself and throwing off enough surplus heat to be noticeable. An animal usually will not perish from the cold, where a human being will. Man does not know enough to start generation to keep himself warm, although he is capable of doing so. Wild animals seek their own mates. They select individually and instinctively keep their energy current properly blended. Animals communicate with each other by waves. They also sense our minds. They understand our spoken word by the vibratory sound and familiarize themselves with what we mean by it. We talk about a dog knowing or accepting a person by scent. It isn't all scent. It is the generation of the individual wavelength the dog recognizes. Upon working with them, it has been proved to my satisfaction. A dog will obey instructions given to him on the thought wave. He will receive the thought wave if he is alert. The fox is an intelligent animal. He not only can read one's mind, but he has unusual reasoning power as well. All this is in the world around us, but some of us have not realized it. We seem to have lost the key. The key to unlock it is conscious generation of our energy and intelligent use of the power generated. The power works through us, if we so desire, and will enable us to fulfill our needs. Complete flow of energy through the nervous system keeps the body in health and function. The human energy flowing through the mind opens and clears it, enabling it to reach for knowledge needed. The wave vibrations through the mind can be used as a method of communication. We can send out messages and receive them from others. Between two people of compatible signs in marriage, these activities may become highly developed. Chapter 6. Spastic Conditions. A spastic condition is a dreaded affliction which sometimes sets up a fear in people about to have children, knowing that it is usually caused at birth. I have watched this person work on several spastics, and his work and results are thrilling and gratifying. The younger the child, the greater and faster the result. Spastic affliction is caused by shock to the magnetic field, causing it to retain permanent spasm, thereby not drawing the required amount of energy through the lungs. The incoming energy current from the atmosphere cannot be handled by the magnetic field in sufficient quantity, nor can it send the necessary nerve fuel through the nervous system. This sets up a shrinkage causing spasm of the nerves. There are many degrees of spastic condition, at different levels of tension in children at birth, depending upon the nerve tension of the mother at delivery. It is, as a rule, easy to relieve spastic conditions if recognized a short time after birth. Almost anyone having the proper wave frequency to blend with the frequency of the afflicted child can feed the energy to his magnetic field by placing his hand on the child's pelvis, thereby releasing its spasm so that he can draw the energy through his lungs to the pelvis, thus energizing his nerve structure and thereby eliminating the spastic condition. The longer the tension or spasm continues in the magnetic field, the greater the damage is to the body nerves and their structure, thereby making the tension more difficult to relieve. The younger the child, the easier it is to help him by releasing the magnetic field. It is then strengthened by recharging it with human energy. I don't think I will ever forget the first spastic that I saw him release and build. The baby was 15 months old at the time, and the mother told me that she had taken her to numerous doctors all over the state. The doctors could do nothing, only offer a thread of hope that she might grow out of the condition. The baby's legs were straight and rigid, her little fists clenched and motionless since birth, and her head rolled about grotesquely. She had never held it up. We placed her on the desk before this person. He put his fingers over the lower abdomen, the magnetic field region, and directed the energy current through for a few minutes. She began to make restless, jerking movements. He spoke gently to her. "You don't like it, do you?" with a smile. The energy was releasing the pelvic nerves in spasm. The nerves resented at the start. The restlessness stopped. Color began to creep up into her cheeks, luster to her eyes, and the waxen quality of her skin was replaced by healthy, normal pink glow. He removed his fingers. "Now, let's see you kick your legs. Pull them up. That's it. Now, kick them out." I found I was holding my breath and let it go with a deep sigh as the little legs relaxed, came up, and kicked the air, and the fists unclenched as she made spontaneous baby gestures. "Hold the baby up now," he directed the mother. "Now," speaking to the baby, "raise your head. That's the way. Hold it up. Fine. Now doesn't that feel better?" The head wobbled, jerked a few times, then slowly came to a normal upright position in obedience to his spoken words. "We'd like to see her in 2 weeks. A few more times and she should be all right." The mother gathered the baby up, speechless at first. Then a torrent of confused words of gratitude poured out. There was wonderment, hope, and thankfulness shining in her eyes. When they had gone, I turned to him and said, "That baby was not old enough to understand the words you spoke, but she did just as you told her. How do you explain that?" With a beaming smile, he said, "No, she did not understand the words, but her nerves responded to the vibrations of my voice." I was beginning to get used to rabbits jumping out of hats at me, so I was not too surprised at this answer. But this rabbit turned out to be one of the strangest yet. What he told me staggered my senses. This man does not make statements that he has not proved for himself and can demonstrate. I did not then question the veracity of his words, but waited for a similar situation and saw it work with my own eyes. The next spastic baby was just a little over a year old, too young to understand more than a few simple words, but she obeyed the commands given her. Her legs stretched out, her fist opened, and she raised her head to a normal, upright position for the first time by herself. Those words were beyond the intelligence of a normal, healthy child of that age. How could a spastic baby know what they meant? This is how he explained it to me. Through lost knowledge, the functions of the various parts of the body have been erroneously interpreted. The life force is of electric energy. Consequently, the body must be mechanically constructed to conduct, transmit, and be activated by the human energy current. Thought control, thought direction, and discrimination are energy impulses supplied from the magnetic field to the subsidiary brain within the skull, thereby causing impulse reaction through the nerves and their relay centers, affecting the movements at will of all parts of the human structure. When he placed his fingers on the lower abdomen over the magnetic field of this baby, he relaxed and strengthened it, enabling it to draw more energy through the lungs. As the energy current traveled through the relays in the subsidiary brain and back, the circuit was established. With the energy current he put into the magnetic field, he sent with it the thought waves for action, the instructions for the nerves and brain to respond. The spasms were relaxed, the major brain was electrified, and the minor brain ready for response. As he spoke, while generating, kick your legs, pull them up, kick them out, raise your head, hold it up. The vibrations of his voice, the command given in his words to the thought implanted sent the impulse upward, and the controlling centers went into action and responded. The little legs pulled up, kicked out, the head raised, and slowly came into an upright position. The thought impulse over those controlling centers or relays was started, and they began to carry on by the repetitious impulse constantly received. As the baby continues with her treatments, the muscles controlling the neck, back, and legs will develop and strengthen by use, and the normal progress and growth of the child will continue. When Tommy C was brought in, both of his legs were drawn backward and twisted, a spastic paralysis from a birth injury. Tommy could not talk and was quite deaf, but was as bright as a new penny. He didn't need words. His eyes and gestures left no one in doubt as to his meanings. He made sounds and they ran the scale of tone and expression, but he did not use his tongue and his lips to form words. Tommy's father told me his story. Tommy will soon be 9 years old. He seemed normal at birth. We first found out he wasn't when he didn't walk. He was always good-natured and seemed well until he was 5 months old. He had a high fever for a short time. The doctor didn't say what it was except that it was nothing serious. When he was 3.5, we took him to a children's clinic. He was 1 week in the hospital for a complete examination. They told us that it was a spastic condition of the knees, perhaps from a birth injury. They wanted to operate and lengthen the cords of his legs, then put him in casts with weights on his legs. He was in a rundown condition, so the operation was postponed for a year. We heard about an osteopath and took Tommy to him. He was going to make him walk. He used some sort of electrical treatments but didn't accomplish anything. The doctors ordered braces. They were made onto a pair of shoes, but they were not successful. After wearing them a while, the skin on both legs was galled. He was in pain all the time, so we took them off his legs. Oh yes, we knew then that he was deaf and could not speak. He makes sounds and noises and he points. He is bright and seems to understand everything. We were advised to have a tonsillectomy done. We did, but we didn't notice any effect from that. Then they made casts for both legs and split the casts so we could remove them. They were on for 10 days, and when we took them off, his legs were galled and bruised. The doctors were dissatisfied with that method of treatment and abandoned the idea. Tommy had picked up a bit, and we were considering the idea of operating when he got a whooping cough and it had to be put off again. Last September, a friend recommended this form of treatment. He told us about another little spastic boy and what wonderful work had been done for him. We decided to bring Tommy up and just got here this summer. Several things prevented us, along with Tommy's getting the mumps. Tommy has had 4 treatments, and I already have great hopes for more improvements. His legs have limbered up considerably, and he is more active. This method of treatment is the only one that is agreed with Tommy. All the doctors just made him more miserable. It was only a short time after I talked with Mr. C that Tommy had his treatment. Great shrieks and howls penetrated from the inner room. It didn't sound to me as though this person were getting along agreeably with Tommy. "What were you doing to Tommy to make him yell so much?" I asked after they had left. He laughed. "You know, sometimes after the vocal cords are energized, they remain lazy. By exciting them through anger, they will become active. Tommy wanted to hit me, and just as his hand came close, by my giving him a quick twist, he would miss. He became more and more angry. Pretty soon he'll get angry enough to talk, although he'll probably swear at me first." At the end of 12 treatments, Tommy was attempting to walk by himself from one piece of furniture to another. He had even attempted stairs and had done quite well. By gripping the rungs and the banister, he had accomplished several himself. With his father supporting his elbows, he could mount the full flight into their house. He was also starting to talk. Mama, Papa, and No were distinct. The word airplane was recognizable. Tommy is responding to his treatments rapidly. When he first came, he had a spasm in the magnetic field and in his leg cords, causing shrinkage of the nerves, locking his legs in the jackknifed position. By generating the human energy through the nerves, it affected a release of the tension, and there is no reason why he can't have full recovery in time. After 3 visits, his ear nerves were relieved of tension so that energy could travel through them. He can hear now. His father says that he hears all small noises and can recognize an airplane by sound when he is in the house. He didn't talk before because of his deafness. There is a certain amount of laziness there. He gets along very well with his sign language, but he is also using words now. Several treatments passed before I saw Tommy again. I walked into the office and Mr. C was sitting there. Standing by himself near a window, straight and tall, gazing down the busy street, was Tommy. Even I was amazed. "Has he done that before?" I asked. "Not like that," Mr. C told me proudly. "I think it is pretty good." "Pretty good? I think it's amazing," I said. "It really is. It really is wonderful," he answered quietly. Chapter 7. Stroke. A stroke has its origin in the magnetic field. One or more of the main feeders is put into spasm from a variety of causes. This spasm continues without relief to the point where the nerve or nerves cannot take it any longer. One violent seizure occurs and the nerves are paralyzed. The spasm in the pelvis, the magnetic field, creates a terrific nerve tension, causing pressure. The nerves can stand only so much pressure. When they reach capacity, they will short out. The electric nerve lines from the magnetic field to the subsidiary brain are overloaded from the pressure, and the weakest spot on those lines is the subsidiary brain nerves. When the pressure becomes too great, a fuse blows out. Just as an ordinary light fuse severs the lead by melting, so the brain accident occurs as well. The fuse in the brain tissue ruptures and severs the nerve line, disrupting the circuit. A degree of paralysis is the result. The degree of paralysis indicates the quantity of the nerve supply involved. If there is movement or motion of the affected part, some of the subsidiary nerve supply is still functioning. Sufficient amounts of the energy current are passing over the small branches to allow motion. If paralysis is severe, or the paralyzed part is completely dormant, only enough of the energy current is seeping through to keep the nerves alive. I had never before seen the amount of restoration of the affected parts after a paralyzing stroke or strokes until I saw this person restore them. His explanation uncovered many mysteries. All his work is seemingly incredible, but the results are before my eyes. Repairing an electric line sounds simple, but realizing this person is doing it to human bodies, I find it most inspiring. This is how he told me he releases a stroke. First, the magnetic field must be relieved from spasm so that it can draw the energy to feed the nerve wires to their normal capacity. The energy is then increased in an attempt to make it jump the space that has been disrupted. If the circuit isn't completed, he tries to make contact with the magnetic field by generating the energy in the paralyzed section, reversing the charge. But the troubles all start in the magnetic field. The tension builds up in the pelvis and immediately registers on the heart. It can be heard in the heart vibrations and, by tension, starts the spasm, causing pressure similar to that of an overloaded line. When the small nerves in the subsidiary brain exceed their capacity in tension and spasm, then it happens. The same as blowing a fuse on an electric line, making a portion of that line dormant and causing a specific area to have a degree of paralyzation. Don't you think, he concluded, that these strokes could be prevented by releasing pressure or spasm in the magnetic field through fitting human energy current to that area, or properly blending their compatible waves so that the magnetic field would remain relaxed? One of his patients was in the final stages of recovery from a stroke. His entire left side had been affected. He had regained almost full use of his arm and hand. Speech had cleared, his mind was clear and alert, and his left leg seemed normal except for a slight dragging of the foot. As he walked, the foot was relaxed from the ankle, but the right outer edge of the sole was dragged along the floor. After a treatment, he was asked to get up and walk across the room. The drag remained. We directed him. Pick it up, put it down, bend it, step forward from the ball of the foot. Slowly, he did it perfectly. With the normal gait, he dragged it again. That foot is open, this person said. All the nerves are working right. You know what it looks like to me, I said, as if he had forgotten how to use it, forgotten how to step on it correctly. Oh, he said, light breaking. Come here, that can be fixed. He put his fingers on the side of the patient's head for several seconds. Now walk across the room, pick your foot up, and step forward on it. The patient did as directed and left the office that day with a normal stride. The correct functioning thought was sent into the magnetic field with the energy current and carried to the minor brain. When this person placed his fingers on the patient's head, he regulated the nerve balance in the brain. The controlling centers to the foot and leg picked up the message, carried the impulse downward, and the foot responded. The circuit was reestablished from the magnetic field, the major brain. Mrs. T had received results from this form of treatment. As her arthritic condition improved, her cousin, Captain D, watched her progress with interest and acknowledged that she was getting better. But if she believed that she was getting better because a man told her he was relaying energy current to her through his fingers, she was as mad as he was. Nonsense, that's what it was to him. Then the captain had 2 strokes. Mrs. T waited a while, then insisted that the captain begin the treatments. But let me tell it as the captain told it to me. I was going to sea on my own ship with the Merchant Marine until 1942 when I went ashore to a desk job. I had had a bad heart for years. I don't know what it was except that the doctor said it was fast and skipped beats. I went to doctors all the time, but it didn't change anything. The following summer I developed asthma, and the next year I had to lay off work and retire. The asthma kept getting worse, and then I developed dropsy. The doc put me to bed and kept me there. I was fighting for breath. I had to sit up all the time to be able to breathe, to get any air at all. They put me on digitalis, 1 pill 4 times a day. 4 days later, I had my strokes. The first one came at noon and the second that night. My whole left side was paralyzed. I was foggy and slow mentally. My vision was blurred, and the left side of my face and mouth were completely paralyzed. My left arm and leg were dead. To move my left arm, I had to pick it up with my right hand. The doctor filled me with hop to keep me quiet at first. After that, he said there was nothing to do for a stroke but to keep very quiet. I was still fighting for breath and still had the dropsy. My legs and ankles were swollen big with fluid. The doc gave me pills for my kidneys and I was put on a diet. I had 1 quart of milk and 1 pound of fruit a day. I was weak from lack of food, and that did nothing for my dropsy. I was in bed a month, and when I began to get up, I had to have help because I fell all over myself. I took some pretty bad falls, but I wouldn't give up. I dragged my left leg and had a hard time keeping my balance. I was top heavy. My mouth was drawn all out of shape. I couldn't get my dentures in, so finally had to have them remade. I saw the doctor twice a month, but it didn't improve anything. My cousin was receiving remarkable relief from a long-standing chronic case of arthritis by taking treatments from this person. He had also worked on my wife and helped her hearing, but I doubted whether he could do anything for me. Finally, I consented to a treatment. He limbered the left leg and arm, and that gave me more strength and control. He worked on my kidneys, which caused large and more frequent eliminations. The next morning, I was able to make the trip to his office, although my wife had to go with me. He treated my heart and kidneys first and built me up so that I could commute daily. 8 days later, I was much stronger, and I told my wife that she could stay home. I walked 2 blocks alone without help and took the train across the bridge. I had quite a bit of confidence by then and handled myself very well. I was still taking the digitalis, but it was bothering me. It just didn't agree with me, so I spoke to this person and he told me to ask my doctor about it. I didn't see the doctor. I just tapered it down 1 pill at a time. After a few weeks, I discontinued taking it entirely. I had a treatment every morning, and at the end of 6 weeks, I was generally better, but he still hadn't gone to work on my arm or leg. He continued to build my heart and kidneys, and I was getting rid of the dropsy. I was eliminating large quantities of fluid all the time from the kidneys and from perspiring. My legs were going down in size. I forgot to tell you that my left hand, the paralyzed one, had been terribly swollen with fluid. The back of it stood up at least an inch higher than the other one. Now all the fluid had gone out of it. It was normal looking again. My breathing was much better by then too. I had only been able to get air down a short way in my chest, but now it seemed that I could breathe way down to my pelvis. My chest soon cleared up entirely. By spring, my kidneys had gone back to normal. All the fluid had gone from my legs and ankles, and they were normal in size and have stayed that way. Then he began to work on my arm and leg. I took several treatments before I could get my arm up over my head, but at the end of the month, I could use my arm and fingers. I could dress myself alone, and I could put my shoes on, cross one leg over the other, and tie my shoelaces. I was sleeping well every night, 6 or 7 hours without waking. There was steady improvement. I postponed my treatments and took a trip north for 3 weeks. When I came back, I began with 3 treatments a week. I was having more use of my arm and hand, and I was no longer dragging my foot when I walked. In June, I was having just 1 treatment a week and was doing very well. During the last week of July, I drove my car for the first time since September of the year before. Before I drove it, though, I overhauled the engine. I was able to handle the tools and control my hands very well. This person went on a 2-month vacation at the end of July, and I was fine for a while. A couple of weeks before he came back, I had a setback. I got short of breath, couldn't sleep, and my chest filled up. I had to take it easy. When he got back, he gave me a treatment. I let down right away. I can breathe better and really sleep now. I'm feeling like myself again. My heart doesn't bother me anymore and my chest is clear. There is also an improvement in my eyes. Just before the strokes, I had new reading glasses and they were pretty strong. After the strokes, I had a hard time seeing out of them. Now I can't see out of them at all. They are too strong. My eyes are still changing and getting stronger. The captain got too ambitious, which caused his setback. He overtaxed his energy, setting up a tension in his magnetic field affecting the flow of energy to his heart. His heart is smooth and steady, but it will take a while longer to make it secure. There is still a nerve tension in his arm and leg, but that will automatically release after his magnetic field is strengthened so that it can draw sufficient energy to feed those nerves. Chapter 8. Arthritis. The lay person today is nearly as well informed on the subject of arthritis as is the medical profession. It is a frequent topic in general conversation. Lengthy articles are published in all the leading magazines. A great deal of research and experimenting is being done all the time. New drugs, new treatments are being brought out. Some give temporary relief to a few. Others receive no help at all. There are a number of victims I know personally, and they are always exchanging remedies and willing to try anything new that they hear about. There have been several who have come to me as a nurse, wanting me to recommend a doctor who is specializing in the treatment of arthritis and giving his patients relief. I have nothing to offer them. There is no doctor I know getting remarkable results in his treatments. I have heard too many of them freely confess that they know very little about it, how to check it, how to cure it, or how to prevent it. Among them also are many who need help and relief. The development of arthritis is slow and painful, and, in some cases, there is the inevitable result of complete disability. The victim can only accommodate himself to the process, and in one instance, I know personally he has gratefully accepted his fixed joints because the pain is less. Until I became familiar with this theory, I also thought that arthritics had little hope for relief. However, this work and its results are most gratifying. Arthritis is no mystery to this person. It is simple cause and effect, and, as in everything I have witnessed, his theories prove themselves in treatment and relief. There is always a cheerful atmosphere while he works on a patient, but when he works on an arthritic, it borders on hilarity. I was astonished at first, and then greatly entertained. As he burns out the rust and oils joints, I am always reminded of the Tin Woodman of Oz who was caught in the rain. "How does calcium form?" I questioned. He replied, "If you analyze the condition, don't you think arthritis originates from the lack of sufficient human energy through the nerves to keep the calcium liquefied in the system? Doesn't nature make use of the nerves in solidifying the calcium to mend a broken bone? And if the nerves are weakened to the same degree as they are in the breaking of a bone, won't they start solidifying the calcium in the system, plating joints, and forming deposits? Often in the case of a broken bone, the calcium plating will cause extra deposits around the break, affecting the nerves and causing pain and lameness of the part for periods of months or even years. This can be eliminated almost immediately by increasing the energy through the nerve afflicted so that it can dispose of the calcium. Many people, after 5 minutes of human energy, have no further use for their crutches. As he further explained, arthritis, it is only another manifestation of improper function of the nerves, a lack of natural fuel. There are several causes creating the different recognized types of arthritis. Fundamentally, the action of the nerves is alike, only the causes being different. One cause may be from infection in the body, another from injury to the nerves, acute or chronic in nature, and the last, as he terms it, shrinkage of the nerves themselves from fuel starvation. Whatever the initial cause, the nerves have lost their required vitality and are not adequately conducting the energy current through the body, thus maintaining proper and efficient systemic activity. The normal calcium content is circulated and utilized by the body in liquid form. The magnetic field in the nervous system constitute the motor in us that makes us operate. As parts of the motor slow down, the calcium is not handled correctly by the body, and some of it solidifies and begins to coat joints at the points of the sluggish nerves. When this process first starts, the calcium is of the consistency of sandpaper. He calls it rust or plating. With movement, the nerves consequently are in contact with this rough deposit, and pain and irritation are set up. As the deposit is increased, the nerve is further inhibited in its activity until it is finally embedded solidly in a heavy calcium deposit. The joint is frozen, immovable, and gives the typical knobby, distorted appearance of arthritis. When arthritis is caused by infection in the body, the toxin thrown off by the infection sets up the irritation to the nerves. The system is struggling with the infection, and there is not enough increased nerve fuel supplied to the nerves to eliminate through the kidneys the extra burden put upon the nervous system by the infection. The plating of the calcium begins, and, unless the nerves are supplied with increased amounts of normal nerve fuel, the whole nervous system begins to run down and the calcium deposits increase. In the traumatic type, or that due to injury, a blow, or constant mild jarring of the body, frequently brought about by the type of work one does, the nerves begin to spasm from the shock they receive. As they spasm, the requirement of the energy current is not circulated through the nervous system. The body is not supplied its necessary energy, and the calcium deposits are started. The general shrinking of the nerves is brought about by complete lack of the required supply of the energy current from the magnetic field. I have seen cases brought in wheelchairs or shuffling in on canes and crutches. To see them, one would think they were hopeless. They represent a long, slow process, but they are seldom hopeless to him. Almost everyone is given relief from pain in a very few amount of treatments. The calcium deposits are dissolved by human energy, and most of the deformity removed. The patients are put back on their feet and are able to walk and move about. But restoring the nerves back to normal strength to prevent further spasm, shrinking, and redepositing of calcium takes a great deal of time. When the energy current is distributed, the nerves are usually immediately released from spasm, and the charge of energy is carried through, relieving the weakened condition. Joints are usually relieved so that they can work again. With certain formations of the energy he applies to the calcium deposits, the deposits soften and crumble under his fingers. I have put my fingers on the solid deposit and felt it begin to soften and crumble as he puts the energy through. When the mass has softened, he manipulates the joint, grinding the calcium in the socket and reducing it to a form that the system can handle. He then directs the nerve supply to the kidneys, strengthening them for heavy elimination. All the nerves are carrying the energy current by then, and the system reassimilates the calcium turned back into it, and then throws off the waste, which is taken up by the kidneys and eliminated in a matter of hours. The waste is thrown off in almost pure metallic form, and so considerable kidney and bladder irritation occurs. The dissolving of the solid calcium must necessarily occur in stages and degrees. While nerves are still weak and in spasm, calcium will redeposit. The revitalizing of the magnetic field and the individual nerves goes on for quite a while, for only when the nervous system is strengthened by an unobstructed flow of nerve fuel is arthritis conquered. He always explains to his patients how they can eliminate most of the pain by the use of their own magnetic field. When one comprehends the mechanical action of the energy current over the wires of the body, he may then begin to control much of the nerve actions and reactions. After the magnetic field is strengthened, it draws in larger amounts of energy, stimulating the flow or circulation all over the nervous system, and equalizing and distributing the energy to all parts of the body. As I have watched him work, I could not help comparing his working methods with my own experiences. "What you do to arthritis shouldn't be done," I said. "Yet you get results. In fact, it is the only thing I have ever seen help arthritis. I have seen you work on some terrible joints. If I were taking care of them as patients, they wouldn't let me touch them. But you practically take them apart and put them together again, and they don't mind. What do you do to the calcium to dissolve it? How do you use the energy current?" He laughed. "It does look cruel, doesn't it? Doctors have watched me and have gotten very excited. 'Why, you are ruining that joint!' But the patient would get up and walk much better and be able to bend the joint with less pain. To dissolve calcium first, a charge is put in the magnetic field, increasing its strength to draw more energy to feed the afflicted parts, thereby alleviating some of the intensity of the pain. Then an attempt is made to open the circuits to the afflicted areas since, generally in a frozen joint, the circuit to that area is partially dormant, and that lets the energy through. Next, the patient's proper fueling current is transmitted through one hand and neutral current through the other hand. When the two waves meet, they act as a short circuit and form heat. This usually begins to soften the calcium deposit. Then, the afflicted part can be moved, and that grinds up the deposit. One can feel it grind. I have seen them hobble in with a knee joint enormously swollen and as hard as one's head. After about 5 minutes of the softening treatment, I have put my fingers on that hard mass, and it has turned to a pulpy mush. I didn't believe it either until I felt it. When it is of that consistency, he rotates the joint in the socket. It may take several times to soften and loosen those big deposits. The magnetic field building strengthens the entire nervous system, which speeds up and regulates the whole action of the body. The softened calcium is absorbed. The system takes and uses what it needs, and the waste is thrown off through the kidneys. None of the patients like this stage. All the nerves are awakened by the increased energy, and the circulating of the calcium annoys the patient because it irritates the entire system. It keeps him at home and usually interrupts his night's sleep. This form of softening calcium and grinding the joints should be continued for some time to prevent the calcium from resetting. When the calcium deposits are eliminated, it takes time to relieve the tension and depletion remaining in the nerves, which originally caused the affliction, enabling the nerves to release their tension in the joints and allowing more freedom there. It usually takes considerable time, but the patients seem grateful and pleased with the results. I have seen the results and talked to the patients. From almost helpless cripples, worn out with pain, they are now almost free from pain and are resuming the activities of normal daily life. To watch him treat these patients is almost as good as a circus. The most marvelous, and on the surface the most baffling, is his control of pain. He takes the pain out first, and then does his softening and grinding. At that stage, the patient clutches the arms of the chair, braces himself, clenches his jaw, and waits for the pain to begin. There is little or none. If any starts, most of it is immediately shut off. So on the whole, the process causes the victim little discomfort. The facial expressions run the gamut, and the vocal expressions should be recorded. They are all highly entertaining. In a short time, the patient has relaxed after much prompting and then takes an interest in the procedure. His expression is such that he doesn't believe what he sees. That can't possibly be his leg. Incredulity and confusion run riot over his face. A little old lady hobbled in for her first treatment, stiff, awkward, and full of pain. She had arthritis in both arms and legs. She had been ill for 7 years and at one time was not able to walk for 11 months. Her knees, ankles, and toes were fixed. She complained of a pulling pain in her left chest. He started in, fingers here and there, over the chest pain, the neck, both shoulders, and then the magnetic field. He had distributed enough energy current, to start to work. There was evidence of calcium in the right shoulder, elbow, and wrist. The chest pain was better. She could breathe deeper. He grounded the calcium in the right shoulder, winding her arm around like a crank. The funny expressions began to play across her face. Now raise your arm straight up over your head. Why, I can't. I haven't been able to comb my hair. I can't get my arm above my shoulder. You can now, he laughed at her. Go on, put it way up. She tried, doubtfully, carefully, and experimentally. Come on, way up and over. Throw it up. She did. Up it went almost straight. She waved her hand over her head. She bent her elbow and patted and arranged her hair. The pain in the left chest was better, but there was still some pull. He went to work on her left knee, softening the calcium. The knee was very large and quite stiff. She began to grow interested. Can you move it now? Kick it out. She tried. There was not much improvement. Then there was more softening and it began to move. That's good, she said. Burn it out. He grounded the calcium and she sat there, fascinated and pop-eyed. The pain in her chest was better. His fingers went down her leg. The big toe was stiff and enlarged. That's been a bad one. I have to be very careful how I wash it. Be careful. That one hurts. It doesn't hurt now, does it? He said, pulling it and manipulating it. She looked at the toe, looked at him, and back at the toe again. No, she said carefully. No, it doesn't. When he had finished, he said, Now where is the pain in your chest? She felt around. She moved. She breathed deeply. It's gone. I can't find it. All right, now stand up. Put your foot up onto that chair as if you were going to step on it. Oh, I can't. I can't get my leg up. My knee won't bend. Won't it? He winked at me. Try it now and see. She measured the distance from the floor to the seat of the chair. She looked at her foot and her knee, and then at him. She glanced around for something to hold on to. There was nothing. He sat there, relaxed and smiling. She gathered her courage and determination, set her jaw, and up came the foot onto the seat of the chair. "I thought you couldn't do it," he teased. She looked as pleased as a child on Christmas morning. "I thought I couldn't either." Mrs. H had had arthritis for 22 years. "It first started in my left arm," she said. "There was sudden and severe pain. The arm locked immediately and remained locked all those years until I began treatment with this person. After it locked, the pain disappeared. 6 years later, the pain returned. All over me then. I had my tonsils removed, but I kept getting worse all the time. Both knees were swollen and the pain was constant and severe. The cords of my legs were drawing backward. I went into a hospital for the cords to be stretched. Traction, I think they call it. Anyway, they put weights on my feet to pull my legs out, to stretch the cords. I was there 2 months and I lost a great deal of weight. I came home from the hospital and was in bed for months. They had stretched the cords, but I couldn't walk. Then the cords started drawing again and I went back to the hospital. They put the weights on once more and then casts. When the cast was put on, my left leg was twisted. They were on 2 months, and when they were removed, my left leg was turned out from the knee and has been twisted ever since. After the casts, I wore braces which weighed 4 pounds apiece, and I had to get around on crutches. I was in intense pain all the time, for the arthritis was all over, and my hands were very bad. I had also lost a great deal of weight again. I was in and out of the hospital constantly. I wore braces and used crutches for 3 years. In that time, I had some intervals of relief from pain. A few years later, I had my 5th child. I don't know how I went through with the pregnancy. The last 2 months I could hardly walk, but when it came time to go to the hospital, a miracle occurred. There is no other way to explain it. I couldn't get from room to room, but I was suddenly made strong enough to get out to the car and to the hospital. Do you know? I could hardly feel the labor pains. I was numb. When I came home from the hospital, I took care of the baby myself. She was a beautiful and normal child. Many years later, I spent 1 month in a sanatorium. They gave me excellent care but could not find out the cause or give me any help. I spent the next 2 years mostly in bed. During that period, I developed terrific pain in the right side of my neck, and I couldn't move it. Then my eyes became red and sore, terribly inflamed. A doctor gave me a salve which relieved them somewhat. He said then that I was going through the change of life and that these things were just a part of it. During the next winter, I started having convulsions. After the first one, I had my husband call the doctor, and he was there when I woke up from it. He gave me a shot of some sort, but it didn't help. He told my husband that he couldn't do anything for me, that doctors were baffled with arthritis. He said there was no use in his coming regularly. We would only be throwing money away. I was in bed, not being able to get around, when I heard about this person. I made up my mind to get out of bed and get down to see him. You remember the first day I came here? I do remember that day. Mr. H had carried her into the house to the waiting room. From there to the treatment room. With his support, she was able to shuffle her feet and, by swinging her body, propel herself slowly forward. Mr. H lowered her into the chair where she sat, a stiff, twisted, little piece of humanity that made one's heart ache. Her left arm was bent at the elbow and drawn to her side. All her fingers were extended, stiff and awkwardly. She had a partial movement of her right arm with no action from the elbow or wrist. In a standing position, her knees were bent, and her left leg and foot were turned outward, and the right slightly inward. Sitting down, they kept the same position. Her feet weren't really feet. Both ankles were enormously swollen and fixed. They were just solid, useless blocks at the end of each leg. Both knees were greatly swollen and entirely immovable. She looked so little and thin, just dry skin stretched over horribly enlarged joints. But she was smiling and friendly and cheerful. We watched her progress into the room, and after she was seated, questioned her regarding her condition. She said she had had arthritis for many years. She was told that she might be helped a little, but that it would take a long time, as there was a lot of work to do. We come back to the present. She walked down the hall after her treatment into the room where I was. She greeted me with remembrance, walked over, and with just a little help from her husband, sat in a chair across from me. I was amazed at the change in her in just a little more than 4 months. Her face had filled out. She looked healthy and at least 10 years younger. She was eager and bubbling with animation and enthusiasm. "Look at the things I can do now," she said. Her ankles and knees were normal in size. She could move her feet to a considerable degree. Her left leg was noticeably more nearly straight. Her left arm she could now extend from her body, and she was able to wiggle all her fingers. She held her head erect and turned it from side to side. Not full motion yet, but she could turn it. She said, "I can now walk up the steps of the house." The first change came after just a few treatments. I used to almost freeze in bed. I had to have hot towels around me. After the first few treatments from this person, I began to get warm, even my feet. After the 4th treatment, my daughter noticed that I was walking better. I didn't tell her anything about it. I wanted to wait a little while and see what the treatments would do. Then one day a neighbor came down and wanted to know what new pills I was taking. She said she had never seen such a change in a person. I told her I wanted to wait for several weeks, and then I would tell her. But she insisted, so I told her about it. You know, life begins at 40, they say, but life began at 50 for me. I am such a different person. I used to be quite hard of hearing in my left ear. Just the other day there was a popping and cracking going on, and now I can hear it clearly. Previously I wore bifocal glasses, but since I began following this theory, my eyes have cleared up rapidly. 6 weeks ago I took my glasses off because I could not see with them on, and have not worn them since. Also, before beginning with these treatments, I had a terrible time signing my name to anything. I had difficulty in holding a pen, but now I can write quite well. I write to a son overseas, and the other day we had a letter in which he had noticed the improvement in my writing. It's easy now because my hands move, but that isn't all. I can wash, iron, dust, vacuum. Darn, and I can even bake a pie and a cake. I have tried to give you a picture of Mrs. H as I saw her, and the story of her suffering and improvement. For 22 years, her normal activity was handicapped, although it left no mark on her disposition or personality. Her release and her reward are now in sight. She is receiving relief. Chapter 9. Sleeping Sickness. It was interesting to me to see what this person would do when he received his first sleeping sickness case. The patient's wife accompanied him for his first treatment to interpret, because his speech was too difficult to understand. When he was stricken, it was diagnosed as sleeping sickness, and he was hospitalized, attended by 2 doctors, a general medical man and a nerve specialist. I questioned, "How sick were you?" I was very sick. I had a fever of 102 degrees and my throat was very swollen. Swallowing was difficult and speaking was almost impossible. I had a very hard time forming words, and when I got them out, no one could understand them. Breathing was a great effort. I could not breathe deeply, and I still cannot. They gave me penicillin, 1 dose every day for 10 days, which helped. I left the hospital on the 10th day. I am a little better now, and have not seen a doctor for 6 months. Were you terribly drowsy, and did you sleep a lot? I questioned. Yes, there were periods of sleeping and periods of extreme restlessness. This person, with a very surprised look on his face and disappointment in his voice, said, "Is that what sleeping sickness is like?" It seemed to me that sleeping sickness would be pleasant. While you were sick, you just slept it off. You could sleep all you wanted to and wake up well. When our laughter subsided, he said, "Now let me listen to your vibrations." There was spasm of the magnetic field, tension in the cords to the neck and tongue, a jumpy and labored heartbeat, and nerve depletion. Let me give you a picture of Mr. R as he sat there. A tall man in his early 40s and, quite obviously, not well. His eyes were dull. His skin was putty white, dry and lifeless. The cords of his neck were prominent and noticeably under tension. His breathing was labored and shallow. When he spoke, it was with much hesitation and considerable effort. Most words were indistinguishable, and he had marked difficulty with the sounds s and th. At the end of 5 minutes of the energy current into the magnetic field, the spasm completely relaxed. A transformation had taken place before our eyes. Color had slowly crept back to his face until all the skin was glowing and vital. Light came back into his eyes, increasing to a brilliant shine. He took long, deep breaths, filling his lungs hungrily. This person placed his fingertips on the cords of Mr. R's neck. After a few moments, he said, "Now say something. Talk to me." Slowly, but quite clearly, and with only slight hesitation, he replied, "I feel very much better. I can breathe deeper and swallow more easily." From the first treatment, he has not lost his color and healthy normal appearance. Breathing has continued to be easier and swallowing without effort. After his third treatment, he was asked, "As a businessman, what would you say is the percentage of improvement that has taken place in your condition?" "Before your treatments," he answered carefully, "my speech was completely blocked every evening. I could not talk at all. I would say my speech has improved 50%, the swallowing 100%, and in general overall improvement, 33% after each treatment." When we discussed it later, this person said, "It was interesting to me to know that he had had sleeping sickness, not having come in contact with it before. What do they say causes sleeping sickness?" I told him that I didn't know much about it, that it was supposed to come from an insect bite, that you didn't catch it from another person. He said that that seemed strange, that in listening to the vibrations there didn't seem to be any infection. They denoted magnetic field depletion, causing some facial paralysis and spasm of the neck cords. He continued, "After the energy was sent into the magnetic field with the right frequency, the magnetic field was able to draw the energy through the lungs, thus strengthening the nervous system. This enabled me to release the tension in his neck and the paralysis in his face. As you can see, this was done in 5 minutes. If all other cases of this type are like this one, don't you think it would be easy to help them?" Chapter 10. Fluid Accumulation. A professor with an extremely painful foot asked this person if he could help him. After a few treatments, I went along too, as I was anxious to see the foot. "I had what I believed to be a callus on the bottom of my left foot," the professor began, "which, from time to time, I carefully trimmed. About 3 years ago, I cut too deeply and started an infection. My doctor treated it, but it was a long, slow process. It would drain, heal for a while, and be better, then open up and drain again. The swelling would go away, and then return. About 1.5 years ago, it grew rapidly worse. I was put to bed, and I assure you, all this time the foot and leg were most painful. After quite a long period in bed, I was allowed to sit up with my foot on a chair. I might still be sitting there if I had not insisted I was going back to work. I have seen many doctors since then, and have had many diagnoses from plantar's wart to I don't know, and they had me in an unhappy state of confusion with their contradictions. The last doctor, after charging me a fee, named it papilloma. I stopped there. Papilloma, I felt, was more suitable to a scholar and a gentleman. So papilloma it has remained as far as I am concerned. But what's in a name? The foot and leg remained crippled and torturing. A diagnosis did no good without a cure, and they all failed there. You may call it anything you choose. Just go ahead with your work and get me well. I have work to do." With a wave of his hand, he settled back into the chair, closed his eyes, and sank into profound meditation or complete relaxation. I could not be sure which. This person then explained to me. The appearance of the foot at first looked as though it were an infection from the old wound on the bottom, but the wound was closed at the time and there was no drainage. The foot and ankle were all out of shape, and the swelling reached to about 2 inches below the kneecap. From the toes, over the instep, including the ankle, it was tremendously swollen. The skin was stretched tight. It was fiery red and glistening, and heat was radiating from it. "I know," I said. "I've seen swelling like that, so hot you could warm your hands over it." The professor roused, opened his eyes, and gave me an amused, pitying look. "My dear young woman, you could have lit your cigarette from my foot." This person resumed. "The pressure from my fingers caused deep imprints to remain in the flesh. Wouldn't you surmise that that was an indication of fluid accumulation, not all infection? It coincided with his appearance, pasty skin and puffiness all over his body. His vibrations indicated a depleted magnetic field and a heavy fluid accumulation throughout the body. My intuition told me to steady his heart, build the magnetic field, and not bother with the foot now. By generating the energy into his heart nerves, they were slowed down and cushioned. The energy released the spasms from the magnetic field and strengthened it so that it could draw the necessary energy through the lungs to feed the nervous system, including the kidneys. For good measure, a charge of energy current was sent through the foot nerves." The professor became animated again. "For that you have my blessing," he said. "The constant and severe pain I had left me immediately and has not returned. For some of the other things, I withhold my blessings. For instance, what you did to my kidneys." This person shook with laughter. "Do you mind repeating what you told me?" "Not at all," the professor replied with mock seriousness. "I had 3 treatments in 1 week, at the end of which time my dignity was completely demoralized and I was transported back to my childhood. The nerves to the bladder woke up. I was quite conscious of them and their increasing frequent demands. I had to retire from all public life and was reduced to the state of a dancing child, loudly telling his mother his urgent need. To add to my indignities, I began to perspire. Let me correct that. I sweat. My nights were turned into hideous hours of toil. I was mopping, constantly. I changed pajamas twice a night and shifted bed linen until, by morning, there was nothing left dry in the room. I was a busy, unhappy man, but the most outrageous part was the terrible odor I had to put up with. I shall never cease to be grateful that I remained a bachelor. If not, I am sure I would have lost my wife in the ordeal I went through for a week." When he had finished laughing, this person finally managed to say, "Sorry, but these descriptions are always funny. When the patients come back in, they are all furious. The way people describe their reactions amuses me. You are ruining me. I won't have anything more to do with you." But they always come back for more. Then continuing more seriously, "When the magnetic field is strengthened so that the nerves can receive their proper energy, the kidneys begin to do their work and the whole system starts to eliminate the poisons. As the toxins eliminate, the patient starts to improve." At the end of 3 weeks, the professor was well on the road to recovery. His skin had regained a healthy pink tone and all puffiness of the tissues had disappeared. For the better part of a year, he had lost his sense of taste. All foods seemed alike and he had no appetite. Now he was eating well and enjoying his meals with no after distress. There was a general all-over improvement and feeling of well-being. The heart rate was slower and more normal, breathing much easier, and his disposition had returned to normal. In the beginning of the nerve building, almost everyone reacts in disposition and temperament, and the professor was no exception. We were amused, knowing it to be only a brief phase of the recovery. At the end of the 2nd week of treatment, work was started on the foot itself, in addition to the continued building. At the end of the 3rd week, the foot was 1/3 less in size, the swelling and puffiness in the leg almost all gone. The redness and heat faded entirely. The foot had some discoloration, comparable to a fading bruise. Sensitivity and nerve sensations were increasing. The old wound, which had opened during the time the fluids were being eliminated from the body, was now closed and had started to fill in. Chapter 11. Rheumatic fever nerves. Rheumatic fever and this person's results in working with it interested me greatly. "You have observed that little boy from the time he was first brought here," he said, speaking of a child who had just left. "He was lacking in energy and was feverish, especially in his joints. You felt his pulse at the start, pounding, irregular, and under strain. It sounded like a valve leak in his heart. That was what they tell me is a typical rheumatic heart. Many children have been brought to me with similar symptoms which revert back to a weak magnetic field from birth, resulting in tension throughout the nervous system, including the nerves which control the heart valves in the heart. As you see, when the spasm is relieved from the magnetic field, the heart equalizes itself due to the increased flow of energy through the nervous system, and a charge of energy through the heart valve nerves eliminating the blowing sound. Then the natural flow of energy to these parts keeps the machinery running. It is difficult for me to understand how this could develop from an infection. There was no infection that the family knew of. He had been weak and ailing from birth. Those children usually are the result of a magnetic field depletion in the parents and, as a general rule, the mother is in extreme tension all during her pregnancy and especially at delivery. The spasm and tension should be relieved from the magnetic field by the generation of human energy before delivery, thus causing an easy birth. Another similar case was that of a child whose brother was spastic from a birth injury. While his mother was carrying the second baby, she told me that she was frantic for fear that it might be another spastic. Her fear created tension in her magnetic field, causing the baby's magnetic field in turn to be in tension or spasm at birth. Now she is 2 years old and all these symptoms are showing up, as you see. These symptoms are fever, nerve spasms, and heart strain, with the valve starting to weaken. The doctors referred to this case as rheumatic fever to the mother. This baby had an overabundance of nervous activity. It was impossible to keep her still. She was just 2 years old and as tiny and perfect as a Dresden figure. When I saw her, she wore a miniature blue coat and bonnet and was as darting and as restless as the bluebird she resembled. Her mother was alarmed about her and brought her in for treatment. The baby had had a fever of 105 degrees 3 times in 2 months. Under doctor's orders, she had 3 series of sulfa drugs. The fever had finally broken, only to return a short time later. The apparent cause was enlarged tonsils, and tonsillectomy was recommended. She was advised to keep her quiet because her heart rate was much too fast, but that had proved an impossibility. The mother is a graduate nurse and was fully aware of the hazards involved. She brought the baby in before she decided on the tonsillectomy. In 3 treatments, most of the baby's artificial pep was gone, and her heart rate was slower. She was more quiet, relieved of tension, and more willing to play quietly and submit to an afternoon nap. Her fever had subsided, and her mother was elated with the results. "Don't you think," this person added, "that it would be an advantage to an expectant mother to know whether her magnetic field was supplying the proper energy to the nervous system, thus relieving bloated pressure while carrying, and eliminating considerable stress, excess tension, and pain at delivery?" Chapter 12. Conclusion. There are times, it would appear, that I am becoming an animated question mark, but the answers this person has, and his demonstrable proof only whet my interest and foment new ideas and new questions. The answers he gives are new and startling to me and, on first encounter, will probably be hard for some to accept, but his theories prove themselves over and over again. During my first few months of contact with him, and my early education in his work, I wondered greatly how his teachings and explanations would be accepted and believed. But watching his patients and listening to them talk changed my mind. They are all interested and bewildered, but elated with the results. His explanations to date have been purposefully and necessarily brief and vague. They listen intently, amazed and surprised, but never scornful. The result taking place in their bodies is proof enough for them. In conversing with many of them, it appears that each one has given it considerable thought and worked out an acceptable explanation for himself or herself based on their understanding of the human body and the general principles of electricity. We are witnessing and sharing in tremendous developments in the field of electronics. Many developments we know, and many are yet to be explored. If this great universal knowledge and force can be employed in mechanical progress and development, surely it will work for and through us as human beings, for we are the most awe-inspiring piece of machinery ever devised, and our aliveness, our self, is the very essence of electronic force. In conclusion, here again are his theories. All knowledge of everything in the world stems from one established force: universal wisdom. The wave energies blending from the three ruling solar suns maintain life. From this power comes all creation, all intelligence. All that man has brought forth in wisdom, teaching or invention, knowledge, unchanging and unalterable, containing every reason and riddle of mankind and our existence on earth, comes through on the waves. From this source comes the wisdom and development of life itself. The pattern is timeless and ageless. It always has been and always will be. The wisdom is in the waves and could have been brought forward in any age. The power is universal and eternal. The knowledge could be brought forth in every civilization, every century, every generation. In man's mind, it comes first as a dream, a vision or an inspiration, and is then reproduced in material form. We mistakenly claim the authorship of such wisdom or invention, but the form is within the universal design belonging to life. This form is never new. It is only remodeled. Man brings it forth and individualizes it with his own expression. Thus, the idea is not the property of one mind. It is only expressed by that mind. This power, this storehouse, is the seemingly unknown quantity behind intelligence and reason, and it is into this we tune to bring forth what we blind mortals assume to be the product of our very own superior brains. We are incapable of conceiving anything to compare with the magnificent overall design within the universal. But the great volume of unlimited wisdom is always present, waiting to pour forth any and all things we seek and desire to accept and to use. Knowingly or unknowingly, it is into this vast pool of wisdom we tune. We have always sought the devious and mysterious explanations and have overlooked the simple ones. We mortals operate on wavelengths from the universal, the Trinity. These are our life waves. They are distributed, one wave from each of the ruling suns. Each of our waves is on a set length or frequency. The blending of the three waves is the power. This sets the pattern of our individual frequency. It is the source of our personality, our identity, and it is as distinct and individual as our own fingerprints. On the strength of our wave, we, similar to a planet, operate by our magnetic field through the medium and receive the knowledge we need from the vast pool of wisdom. It is given to us for our use, impartially and without restriction, to the capacity of our desire and application. The universal power has no restrictions for any man, but recognition of the power in operation and obedience unto it. The intelligence in operation proves itself over and over again. It gives inspiration to the mind. We remain confused and drugged by many laws and are, therefore, not open to accept the wisdom from the power of powers. To obtain knowledge, we must seek it, and then our vibrant field opens to the vast pool of wisdom. When we are in tune with universal wisdom, it pours wisdom out to us in unlimited quantities as rapidly as we can absorb and make it our own. Questioning is quite natural to us. We accept the prompting and make it our own when we prove its accuracy and worth. But questioning of the universal wisdom slows our growth and advancement. For the answers that we seek and cannot find in the world around us, most of us invariably turn inward and attempt to solve them with our own intellect. But when we are able and will reach into the true source of knowledge, we receive the answers immediately. When we acknowledge and accept the source of the power, it will continue to increase, and will bring knowledge for success in our endeavors. This person depends upon the universal wisdom and the source of power through him as a mechanic to help people with their human ailments. By the knowledge given to him of individual frequencies of people, he takes in the energy current from the atmosphere through his own magnetic field, distributes it through his fingertips, and thus transmits it through nerve centers in the body. He transmits only the energy current. The energy current then operates in the patient's body through its normal pattern. Body restoration and healing are then begun. This is the so-called Miracle Man. The title and references to miracles always disturbs him. This is a gift from the power of powers. For himself, he claims no success, no reward. He is only a receiver and transmitter of the universal power. His instruction and application from the source he obediently follows, and the power does the work. These are not miracles, he has insisted to me. Don't you think this is merely an application of the ancient wisdom, known as the laying on of hands? The wisdom to know how to distribute the life rays matching the frequencies of the human being with a weaker nervous system, enabling him to draw the necessary energy. We are all similar. When the energy current is flowing through the nervous system, only healing and perfection can be the result. The energy current is the life-giving, healing, and restoring force that makes the body and the mind function. It has taken me most of my life to realize that many people do not understand this. People are led and influenced into all sorts of conditions because of the inability to reason from facts and use their minds intelligently and independently. There is proof in his every word. His patients are helped, as all will testify. All the accounts of the people I have talked to and the results I have watched and checked are facts. All the methods he uses are new to me and to most of us, but the fact remains, they do exist. He possesses them and uses them constantly. He literally knows nothing of symptoms of disease, laboratory or clinical diagnosis. He has told me, and I readily believe it, that he has treated and made well scores of conditions wherein he hadn't the faintest notion what the person had, or of what happened, medically speaking, as he or she recovered. But he did know the nerves and their branches that were not working. He knew the circuits that were not properly functioning, and the organs and parts of the body that were not receiving their quota of the human energy current. When he had overhauled the motor and had all the circuits opened up, and the right amount of the right kind of energy in the motor, the patient recovered. When I have ventured his theories into some of the less well-known and vaguer types of disease, we have only been able to guess at results. Just a recital of the symptoms is no help. This is the reason. For him to know what is the matter with any person with any ailment, that person must be before him, in person, because only then are the inner workings and dysfunctions revealed. His knowledge of treating is not the result of his own conscious mind, and he makes no pretense that it is. When a sick person stands or sits before him, he tunes his frequency into the higher frequency of the universal waves and is then directly controlled by the Supreme Intelligence. When that contact is made, and it is instantaneous, for it is of the speed and action of electricity, he is also in contact with the wavelength of the person before him. In split-second timing, that person's ailments and their source unfold through his mind. It instantly reveals the time and cause of the initial nerve irritation that disturbed the balance of the motor, the magnetic field. The cause and the source are localized. At the same time, the wisdom directs the application of the energy current and the pattern to follow. That direction remains as an etching and is added to, from time to time, as necessity demands. By the time he has placed his ear over the chest of the patient, his instruction is complete. The vibrations between the beats of the heart register the location of the afflicted nerves. The number and type of vibrations verify the duration of the condition. He has sensed the cause. The heart vibrations verify the situation. And then he is ready to work. His fingers go unerringly over the affected nerves, and he feeds the required energy current into the indicated center. He follows implicitly the directions given. His own personal task is distributing and blending the proper amount of energy current. This is his responsibility at that time, and each treatment thereafter. Once the energy current has entered the body of the patient and is circulating, his responsibility ends. The energy then acts or reacts upon the nervous system under its pattern. Then the body maintains its normal function. When the body is strengthened by a strong, properly nourished nervous system, the mind is geared accordingly. Then, possessing a great sense of ease and contentment, one's desires are normally to do good, to help his fellow men, to share good fortune, and radiate thoughtfulness and kindness. It is nerve tension that produces irritability, dissatisfaction, frustration, and envy, and these in turn create an appetite for power, and power creates greed, and so it grows. The nerve tension is the simple hunger for the proper nerve fuel, and when the sufficient amount is received, the body is at ease, and the mind content. This concludes Know Your Magnetic Field, written by an anonymous author, and read for you by Audio Voices. All the best.